Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Would you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to welcome everybody here tonight and ask that if you have cell phones that you put them in the airplane mode or whatever silencing method is convenient for you, except for those that have the possibility of being called. Tonight, first series of public hearings for the sale of town-owned land on Redemption Way. I will turn this over to John.
Thank you. This is a public hearing under a statute that the town meeting adopted that allows the Board of Selectmen to sell selected parcels of town property for specific purposes. The TurboCam helped to develop Redemption Way. They paid for the subdivision and did all of the roads. And the town currently still owns several of the lots in there. TurboCam has approached the town about using two of the lots, one from the subdivision and one that the town reacquired from the American Legion that had been subdivided off earlier before TurboCam. And this is for the development of a 32,000 square foot building as a training center, tool room, research and development center. This is the first of two public hearings. I know Elliot Wilkins is here if you have further questions for him. I think it's a fairly straightforward opportunity for the town. TurboCam has built several buildings in town. They pay almost $500,000 in taxes total. They've created hundreds of jobs, and they're adding jobs all the time. So this is a good win-win for the town.
Is there any comment from the public, please? Comments from the board? Mr. Hare.
I would just like to recuse myself from this. I support business in towns up. I've walked that lot and stuff, and I cannot support it until a conceptual is done. Make sure it will fit in there, all the new regulations and stuff. There's tough lots. They need a lot of work and stuff. So when you do a conceptual, you can sell me once I get a conceptual that makes everything will work for our zoning and regulations. So you don't have to come in with a bunch of waivers. Thank you.
Did I hear you correctly? $500,000 in taxes is generated?
Yes.
Okay. And they're simply asking for permission to approach to purchase the property?
They're requesting permission to purchase the property. The board would normally enter into a development agreement. The thing that Dan is concerned about would be addressed in the development agreement. It does not mean that we have to have everything figured out ahead of time. It means that we are authorizing proceeding with a plan. They need to go to the planning board for site review. They would almost certainly be combining the two lots as far as setbacks go. And this is something that, assuming the board agrees to proceed, there would be that development agreement similar to the one that's currently in place for the two main lots and a third lot down there. And that is the direction that I would encourage the board to go, to approve this, understanding that there will be further agreements as far as the development of the site goes.
Yeah, because just to remind everybody that if there are any exceptions or anything else they have to use, they have to go before the planning board, and they would also have to go to the ZBA to get that.
Can you recognize the chief over there?
When we get finished with here, we will.
Have we been approached by any other person or business in reference to these lots?
No.
Okay. If throughout this process we were approached by another business, and would we then reopen discussions, or is this like a handshake? Is this an option to
This is not like a handshake.
Okay,
This
so
is-
it's an option to buy the property, but not with an agreed upon amount?
Yes, there
Okay.
will be, as part of this whole thing, there will be an agreement that is developed that includes everything, including the price. This is the first of two public hearings. When the board comes to a vote a month from now, I would anticipate that either we will have finished or the outlines will be clear, and that will be part of the approval process.
Please continue.
Have we been through, clearly I've only been at this less than a year, 11 months at this point. Have we been through this type of approach with businesses in town before?
This is the fourth one.
Is it always been the same business?
No.
Okay. So
Two with other
what you need
businesses.
from the select board at this time is what, just the ability to enter into this discussion?
I don't need anything at this
So this
time.
is
It's just a
just-
public hearing to get
okay.
input, to ask questions. If there were questions that Elliot could answer, he's here to do that. If the public brings up issues that would help to shape the development agreement, or like Dan's concerns, certainly that can be built into the agreement, but at this point, we're just starting to gather information through the public hearing.
Just so everybody realizes, tonight we're going to go into non-public to discuss the value and what we should be asking for a price. So in the event, as you had said earlier, Tracy, that when you talk about the price, if somebody else wanted to come, they wouldn't have that knowledge to have it, so that's why we're going to go that way. Dan, please.
Select person, not. People are not pounding on door business coming to Barrington. Public water, sewer and stuff, and people, it's not, we're trying to be business friendly and doing a lot of steps and stuff, but we can't get people in here right now.
Do you have another question, please?
So I just want to understand the process. So twice we bring this forward in front of the public. At the same time, in conjunction with that, we enter into a price negotiation as we're listening. And when does the board make a final decision on this?
A month from today.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Is there any more questions from the board? Anyone from the public, please? Chief?
I would just like to say that, I would just like to say that, having worked with TurboCam on both of the projects on 125 and Route 9, actually two pieces of both buildings, they put additions on both times. Excellent to work with. Anytime that we've had any concerns, they've addressed them immediately, gone out of their way to make sure that we were happy. And that's a huge bonus for the town as far as I'm concerned. And the fact that what you already talked about, bringing business and stuff in, I guess I was a little bit confused with Selectman Ayers' comments about not wanting to enter into an agreement with someone to purchase a piece of land unless they were sure they were going to be able to build on it. And again, I guess my thing is if somebody wants to buy a piece of land, they've probably done a little bit of research and have figured out that what they're trying to do will work for them. Number two, if they purchased the land and it didn't work for what they wanted, then it's still going to be their piece of land. So I guess I'm a little bit confused as to why we would not want to support selling a piece of land. The other side of that being is I think that when you look at TurboCam being on that site and having them, I think they have another lot, and for them to be interested in acquiring a lot to stay on the campus is huge from a number of perspectives, including public safety. If they're working all fairly close to the fire station, that's a big deal for all of us. Thank you.
Selectman Ayers?
Yeah, Chief. Basically, I walked that lot and stuff, I looked at it before and stuff, and then with all our regulations and stuff, and then when it goes to tech review and stuff, they can't get the fire truck around it and stuff, or meet the criteria. Why be aware what they get into? So they meet everything with all the state regulations and drainage and stuff, and the setbacks, because part of that lot is very wet. The leaching wouldn't work. We had to buy it back, so I don't want to get in that predicament again for the town.
Thank you.
You have to remember that we go as far as, that we're the ones that sell the property. Planning board is the one that's going to ensure that the regulations are adhered to, and that's the part that's there. So once we agree to the sale, now we put it back on the tax rolls, and we can go from there.
I would also like to make clear that it wasn't because of the wetlands that the Legion didn't build it, they didn't have the money. As far as building, you're right that the Legion lot is somewhat limited in the building envelope, but the two lots together will provide adequate room.
Is there any other public comment, please? All right, seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing on the sale of land on Redemption Way. I'm waiting for Mr. Knapp. You was missed. The next public hearing is going to be on the vote for Keno. 2017 Senate Bill 191 allowed Keno operations only to establishments with a liquor license, provided a town vote will allow it. This public hearing is required between 15 and 30 days before the ballot vote. Keno proceeds are used to fund educational grants for full-day kindergarten. Although the town does not need to allow Keno to receive the grants, currently 7 cities of 56 towns allow Keno. Businesses that offer Keno receive an 8% in sales commission. Voters can vote to allow Keno by approving Article 18 on the ballot on March 12th. Is there any comments from the board? Stay here.
There's a lot of mixed emotion in town about this, so we should follow through with the regulations and see what the code says, yes or no.
Any further questions? Any questions from the public, please? Now, please remember that this is the final public hearing we're going to have prior to the vote. I close the public portion. No more from the board. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing for Keno. Thank you. Moving forward, go to appointments. Under appointments, we have Police Chief, if you'll come forward, please, and do the introductions. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for letting us use this venue to introduce our new recent promotion within the police department. With me tonight is Amanda Barber, who's joined by her supportive family, her children Connor and Olivia, and fiance Paul Hagenmiller. Amanda has been a police officer for nearly 5 years, has been with Barrington for 3 years. She holds a bachelor's degree that she achieved as a mother of 2 young children, while also working full-time. Amanda's our lead instructor for active threats and holds police certifications as an ALICE and ALERT instructor. She's also our certified TASER instructor who's been directly exposed to the TASER. Anyone who ever has knows how terrible that is. I'm very proud of all the work Amanda's done. She's in the process of wrapping up a complex felony investigation that's resulted in an arrest. This investigation's been ongoing for months and has involved out-of-state jurisdictions. At each step along the way, she kept supervision well informed, maintained professionalism, and treated the victim with the highest degree of dignity and compassion. There are also 2 specific events within the last year that come to mind where Amanda showed great restraint and professionalism while acting under a high degree of stress and pressure. I'll be careful how to phrase these incidents in the company of our distinguished guests. One night she responded to a neighboring community where one person had discharged a firearm which struck another person. Upon response, Amanda was able to safely negotiate that person out of the residence and take the person into custody without further discharges. The second incident involved Amanda learning of a suicidal subject in the possession of a firearm while driving a vehicle. Amanda located the vehicle, which began to flee from her. Eventually, Amanda was able to conduct a felony traffic stop on the vehicle and was able to secure the firearm which the subject had in his waistband. Without further issues, she was able to get that done. Amanda's also helped move the agency forward through community outreach. She's worked with the school district, where an officer greets children in the morning at this school, at the ECLC, and the elementary school as time permits. Amanda's also our lead instructor for active threats. She's conducted active threats training for the school district, local businesses, and town employees. She's also helped complete a training course on scams and fraud for the Barrington Women's Group. Amanda participated in the sergeant selection process and finished as the top candidate for the promotion. She's earned this promotion from the rank of police officer to police sergeant. This is Amanda's first supervisory promotion, and in my opinion, it is the most difficult transition. You're leaving a position, Amanda, where you're typically responsible for yourself, and becoming responsible for yourself and others you supervise. It's a tough transition. To help with that successful transition, we're sending Amanda to a 2-week first-line police-specific supervisory school at Roger Williams University next month. So she'll be away from her family for a couple of weeks, able to come home on weekends. But thank you guys for your support tonight. And what I'd like to do is swear in Amanda as our new sergeant, and then Connor and Olivia will come up and pin Mom's new sergeant's badge on her. So turn and face me, raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Amanda Barber,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully and impartially
that I will faithfully and impartially
discharge and perform
discharge and perform
all duties incumbent upon me
all duties incumbent upon me
as a sergeant of the Barrington Police Department,
as a sergeant of the Barrington Police Department,
according to the best of my abilities,
according to the best of my abilities,
agreeable to the rules and regulations
agreeable to the rules and regulations
of the Constitution and the laws of the state of New Hampshire.
of the Constitution and the laws of the state of New Hampshire.
So help me God.
So help me God.
All right, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. If you don't mind, just a quick 30 seconds more of your time. I just wanted to say that I've been in Barrington for almost 3 years. It's a great community. I've appreciated everything that Chief Walsh and the community has done for me and allowed me to come in and talk to them. So thank you, and I look forward to continuing my career here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Sergeant Barber.
Congratulations, Amanda.
Next on the
Is
point
that
is
Chief Walsh?
Phil Owen from the Stonehouse Forest. Phil, please.
Hi, I'm Phil Lozier, the property manager for the Southeast Land Trust of New Hampshire, and thank you folks were forwarded some notes on the Stonehouse Forest Recreation Plan. What we're doing tonight is the Stonehouse Forest has to go through 2 sets of plans before we can actually do management of the property. One is a recreation plan, the second will be a management plan that's in the works now, actually. The town has a review responsibility of this, as well as New Hampshire Fish and Game. Both are holders of the conservation easement on the property. So the town's received the full plan electronically, and I made up some notes for the selectmen. Does anybody else want a copy of these notes that's in the audience? Okay, do you want me to go down through these, or do you want to comment on what you've read? How would you like to do this, George?
What's the board's desire? Do you want to, do you have specific ones you'd like to speak to, or would you like me to go through one through the end? Side copy.
And I'm most interested in any form of recreation that is going to be limited under the new plan.
I'm not quite sure how to answer that, but we limit all types of motorized vehicle access. The only motorized vehicles that will be permitted on some of the trails on the property are snowmobiles. We have never allowed ATVs or UTVs or 4x4s or any of that on any of our properties, and this will be consistent with that. Other recreational activities, I mean, gee,
If you look at hiking, camping,
Camping is,
hunting,
okay, so-
fishing,
yes.
that's those are the items that we're concerned with.
those are all permitted. Camping is not, campfires are not, and those are standard policies of ours across all of our properties. So overnight camping, nighttime use of our properties is not allowed.
Can you define nighttime?
After, our properties are open from dawn to dusk. Did that answer your question? I'm not quite sure, Tracy, that
Any other changes to the fishing that would take place at Stonehouse Pond area?
fishing? That's New Hampshire Fishing Game's prerogative. It's a fly fishing only pond. We own 230 acres there. The access into the pond is actually owned by the state of New Hampshire Fishing Game, and about 14 acres immediately on the right side as you're driving in is owned by New Hampshire Fishing Game. We own the remainder of that property. What we're talking about tonight, though, and I'm glad to talk about that property, but we're talking about Stonehouse Forest, which is 1,500 acres that goes approximately from Swain Road across Marsh Road all the way down to the Nottingham Town Line with frontage on Mary Hill Road and Route 9.
And it does not include the pond area.
It does not include the 230 acres Stonehouse Pond property. It's a separate 1,500 acre parcel, but very much managed the same way, and they're interconnected with trails.
What about Round Pond and Little Round Pond?
What's the question?
What about Round Pond and, what is it, Little Round Pond?
Yeah, they're part of the Stonehouse Forest property, the
I understand
bigger
that.
piece, yes.
Fishing?
You could fish there, but there are no fish there to fish. It's not suitable for fishing. We've actually had a fish inventory done on that in Bellamy Brook, which flows out, so
Nothing in it?
there's really no point to fish it.
Selectman Air?
Yeah, that's my question about the other ponds and streams and trapping. Can you trap up there?
We do not allow trapping on any of our properties. That's a policy we've had for a long time.
And you allow hunting?
We allow hunting, fishing, all kinds of passive recreation, but no trapping.
I have a question. Under the integration with forest management plan section, there's a statement in there that says the recreation provides for those components that will be inserted as a chapter within the forestry management plan, which be completed in 2019.
Right, that's what I referred to. The forest management component is being worked on now.
Okay, so you want us to approve a plan that isn't complete this time?
The recreation plan is a standalone plan. You have it, and it's going to be taken in its entirety and moved into the management plan, which deals with manipulating the forest for wildlife and forestry. It doesn't really, the recommendations that we have in the recreation plan stand alone. They will rule on their own, so to speak.
Right, the struggle that I see with that is it specifically references another plan, and we can't review that other plan, which means this plan is, in my world, is an incomplete plan because you don't have the balance of the plan.
It's a standalone plan, as I told you, and it's the way that this was set up initially under the conservation easement. So it's not going to change, the recreation plan isn't going to change when the other plan is done. It's just going to be incorporated in its entirety in the management part of it.
Has New Hampshire Fish and Game approved it?
Yes. And they were involved in the development of it as well, but they have approved it, yes.
Selectman Hardikoff.
Does the plan change at all based upon the pending vote that our townspeople are to take on the conversion of one of our Class 6 roads?
Doesn't have anything to do with that.
Okay.
My meeting with the selectmen, you might remember that I met with you folks and we discussed, hopefully, it was our hope that a lot that the town owns at the intersection of Route 9 on Marsh Road, and that you folks as a board would consider this. That was our input into that. When you turned those things down, that went, those considerations went into the plan, so that's not a part of this.
So if that portion of the vote does not go through and the road is maintained, you will actually have motorized vehicles through the middle of the property, won't you?
We don't have any control over Marsh Road. Yeah.
John has
For the sake of the public who are not, the viewing audience who are not aware of all of this, there will be 2 parking areas that could hold up to 24 cars, and there's going to be just under 12 miles of trail that this is going to cover of various types throughout this property.
Thank you, John. Again, I'd be glad to go over this. And I'm sorry.
In the in the environmental description section under what's it called, section 3 property description, you make reference to the phase 1 assessment and the debris such as tires, rustic cans, drums, plastic, metal car parts, etc. Is there a plan to address those items and clean that material up?
Yeah, we do a phase 1 environmental assessment on all of our properties when we acquire them. And if need be, we go the next step and do a second phase. So this one really didn't have much on it. That material will be removed this summer when we're working on the property. Good question.
I'm assuming while you're taking down the other structures.
Taking down,
Yes.
so you're talking about the huts. They're actually, some of them will be either burned on site, the ones that are decomposed, or we'll be disposing of them off site. There's also a holding pen. It was a hardening pen for game birds, you may know. Yeah. So that's going to be removed. And in fact, I'm working on that now. So trying to find a market for it if anybody.
So I'm assuming the rest of the debris, so I'm assuming the rest of that, the debris that was cited, the tires, the metal car parts, stuff like that would all be cleaned up in conjunction.
Yeah, this property has very little compared to the number of properties we acquired.
Oh, I'm sure.
There's some concrete structures out there. Are they gonna stay?
Say again?
There's some concrete structures out there. One of the parking areas has a big concrete structure.
Well, there's when you go in from Route 9, there's a concrete, it was some kind of a Ponzi scheme for a communications tower at one point that is in the past history. We're not going to remove that. That's if you'd like it, I'll sell it to you. But no, that's a lot of concrete right there. That's staying right there.
And then too, part of this map shows Marsh Road as a trail.
Well, it's a Class 6 road. Yeah.
And then
I think
one of the
when you think about the loops that could work out that snowmobilers are using right now, and a loop, I have it on here somewhere. What is it, about a 0.7 of a mile or a mile? It's about a mile of Marsh Road, I guess, that's incorporated in those numbers, the 13 plus miles of trails. So, no, Marsh Road is there, and these trails have always connected to it, and they, That's just part of.
In your plan, you noted that some of those trails are dead-end trails and you're going to secure entrance to them, or what is your plan for those? Because it's noted in your plan that they weren't going to be allowed to be used.
We're going to decommission a bunch of trails that most of them have origins from logging within the last 30, 40 years, and they're at various states of repair, but the ones that have no real end and no destination and no purpose, we're going to close them up.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Dan.
Do you have a date on the parking areas when they're gonna be completed?
They'll be done by early in the year, so by midsummer, we should have the parking all set.
So in the plan also, it references 2 gates, which are the 2 near the parking areas, but it shows 2 gates along Marsh Road as well.
Right. Yeah, there's one already, and we're going to install 2 more. The entrance to Stonehouse Pond hasn't had a gate on it, and we just incorporated that in the plan. There'll be a gate put there, and there's a second entrance to the Marison Homestead, if you know what that is, on the top of the hill. That used to be, that's actually a historic loop road that went up to that cellar. We're going to be opening that back up as a trail, and we'll put a gate at Marsh Road where that meets Marsh Road. There's already a 3rd gate in there at the entrance that was used quite a bit to get up to that cellar hole.
So I don't know if you have consensus from the board on installing gates across Marsh Road, since it is a class 6.
I didn't say across Marsh Road, I'm saying on our property, gating our entrance.
Oh,
Yeah,
so it's not going to be across Marsh Road?
no, we would never do that.
All right.
Most of the town asked us to do it, that's a whole different thing. I'm talking about gates on our property on the edge of the Marsh Road right of way. Good question.
Person Hopcroft.
How are the keys to the gates controlled and who has access to them?
Well, I control the keys to the gates. We provide them to police and fire in all the towns that we have ownership, and that's about it. We usually have, and we're starting an expanded program on this, but we have people within the community that use the properties a lot and that are sort of eyes for me, that will have, there'll be at least 1 or 2 of them in the community that have a set of keys as well.
Are any of these gates blocking any of the proposed or in-use snowmobile trails?
Are they blocking? They will all block. So they're,
I'm
the
talking
way
about
we,
the snowmobile trails, they block all the trails?
on our property, the gates will block the trails during the seasons that the snow machines aren't using
That's
them.
my question.
Right, so we open them up during the season. Right.
Thank you. Go ahead, Dave.
In the general list of what it does, it just says provide public pedestrian access, including hunting, fishing, hiking, cross-country skiing, and nature observation. I'm assuming this is not all-inclusive because it doesn't have the horseback riding, it doesn't have mountain biking, it doesn't have snowmobiling, it doesn't have snowshoeing. In some cases, it doesn't have bouldering, rock climbing, all other very usable outdoor provisions that people...
The plan does address those, and I gave you a map on the bullets with the map has colored trails on it. The plan has a bigger, and the trails that are open for those uses are color-coded.
Right, but climbing and bouldering are not addressed anywhere on the plan.
They are addressed. The northern part of the property, I don't have the plan in front of me, but they are addressed. But you have to remember that Stonehouse Pond is not part of this property. We made a conscious decision to not open the northern part of the property where there could be a possibility to bouldering and rock climbing. So,
Yeah, it's
not there.
a search of it, it's not in the plan at all.
okay.
And bouldering is usually done at a very low level. It's geared more for climbers.
I'm aware of what it is, yes, sir. Yeah. The northern part of the property isn't going to be publicized as a place where people can do that.
Who oversees Stonehouse Pond?
We do. Well, the 230 acres. Fish and Game owns 14 acres. The dam and the access road into it, they oversee their property.
But you guys are the management company on that too, though, part of it.
We have no authority over New Hampshire Fish and Game property.
Right, 14 acres though. We just-
Fish and Game owns 14 acres, the dam and the road into the pond. Okay?
Right. But you can access it on the backside of it, through these other trails, can't you?
Yes, we have trails that access Stonehouse Pond, and we've just put in a whole new trail network and new bridges and parking and that sort of stuff last year. So, yeah, you can access the pond, our shoreline on it and all that, yes.
Any other questions?
Well, I've still got more here.
Please.
Where it talks about allowed on designated trails, there is no mention of the Class 6 road anywhere in the plan. It just refers to designated trails. So it kind of creates this assumed right that there is no road through the property, even though there is a road. And then also it talks about snowmobile clubs to execute an annual lease for such property. What are the requirements of such a lease?
We use, and we have used this for many years, a standard lease that's the Bureau of Trails, State Bureau of Trails uses. We modify it a little bit, but we choose to do annual leases instead of 5-year leases. And we currently have leases with 4 different clubs on different properties. We don't have a lease yet with the Barrington Club, but we will.
Is it like a $1 lease? Is there?
Oh, there's no charge. No. It's a standard lease that clubs do with owners of properties across the state. In fact, you can look it up on the Bureau of Trails website. I believe if you look through that document, you're going to see Marsh Road mentioned just as a Class 6 road, but
Also, you have allowed only with prior permission from Selton. You reference metal detectors for scientific or historic research under the supervision of Selton staff. I'm just curious as to why.
why we would only do it that way?
Yeah.
This has become an issue on a number of our properties. We've had people come in and use metal detectors around historic sites and take possession of things they don't have possession of. So we own the property. Those are sometimes historic artifacts. They're our property. So we don't want people doing that without our permission. We've had a full archaeological review of this property as well as we have on many of our properties. So, in fact, I find a lot of private landowners other than ourselves are sensitive about those kinds of things, myself included.
Yeah, we've talked about that on the bridge.
Under the prohibited uses, it just says wheeled motor vehicles, unauthorized wheeled motor vehicles, including 4x4s, ATV, UTVs. I'm assuming that with that, it should say something to unless unauthorized roads.
Again, this is related to our property. Marsh Road is not our property,
Okay.
all right?
I have a question for you. When we talked about the snowmobiles, you said snowmobile club. And we have a lot of individuals in the town of Barrington that do not belong to snowmobile clubs.
Right.
So if they're not a member for the snowmobile club, are they prohibited from using the property?
Not necessarily, and we have that issue on all of our properties, but the snowmobile club becomes a partner with us, and they help to make sure that they pull in the reins of people that are violating some of the things that the club and we have worked out. So it's always a good relationship to have that kind of a setup with the local clubs.
So what you're
And
saying-
with the hunters and fishermen, frankly.
So then what you're saying then is that the snowmobilists that do not belong to the snowmobile club in particular that has the permit, they cannot use the property, that's what you're saying?
No, that's not what I'm saying. They can use the property. It's open to snowmobilers, but the trails are maintained by us and often the snowmobile club. And people that use the property that don't belong and don't understand that they have to stay on certain trails are excluded from their use. The clubs help us enforce those rules, and the clubs put up signs showing those kinds of things. So it's a beneficial, mutually beneficial thing when we have these arrangements, but no, snowmobiles will be welcome on certain trails on the property.
But then, but we just said there's going to be ample signage, so that was my next question, thank you. Dan, you have something?
It's for Andy.
For Andy?
I had a couple public comments, but you don't speak on it, I like a lot.
I try to make sure I'm very close to speaking into it. The only other item I had is, on all the maps, it shows Marsh Road as a trail. Is there a way to designate that and show it like you do other town property throughout there? Since we talked about it as such so many times tonight, I think it should be represented as such.
As town property or town right away? What, you know?
No, I'm talking about Marsh Road.
Marsh Road is a public way, it's not a piece of property that the town owns, it's a road.
Right, but if I look on the maps, it shows it as and I will use your map as, it says proposed trail network, pedestrian, mountain bike, snowshoeing, horsebacking, nothing more, and it shows it as such, not as a road, where the rest, if you go farther down Marsh Road, it actually shows it as Long Marsh Road.
So can you tell me which map you want modified? Is it the one I provided you in the handouts?
It's in the whole packet.
Is it page 24 or page 25?
Well, I think it would be anything that represents it as a trail when it's actually...
Are you saying that the red color for the road should be a different color with a different legend?
It does say Long Marsh Road on that map.
And without gates at the front.
There are no gates.
Actually, both of them say Long Marsh Road on the maps.
In what section? There was one section that had, didn't say Long Marsh Road, didn't say Marsh Road, it's Marsh Road. And if you could turn around and look at that, edit it, and correct it, that would make everybody satisfactory.
I'll make sure that every map has somewhere on it. The two that I gave you are right out of the plan. They say Long Marsh Road to the right, out of the highlighted area, so that you can read the text Long Marsh Road, which is the old historic name of that. But if you want that changed, I can have it changed to Marsh Road and make sure that every single map has that.
Thank you.
Is that what you want?
That would be nice, thank you. Dan?
The town still owns 19 acres right in the middle of Marsh Road.
Right, yeah.
If the recreation put like a campground or something in there, would you object to that?
Would we object to it?
As a butter?
You own it.
Yeah, but you say you're gonna be a butter. Would you object to?
It's hypothetical.
Right.
I don't know. I would challenge you to, you haven't been on that land? I'm just looking at it again, I remember that piece now.
That's beautiful.
Any other questions from the board?
Ski jump.
I appreciate you coming in tonight and going through the questions.
So I'm going to assume that these changes are going to be made and you have gone through your review process and we are done going through a review with the town.
As far as I'm concerned, how's the board feel? Are you done with the review process, or do you want to see the
I just like to
change?
see the changes in the updated plan.
You'll get them immediately, but
Okay, that would be fine.
when we get those, how about this? I'm going to make sure John gets them and you all will be able to have them forwarded to you. We're going to need an approval note from someone. Is it okay if it comes through John? We've already got it from the Conservation Commission, but I need it from the board.
Well, we go through the chairman of the board.
Right.
I'm assuming pending the rest of the board would agree about that.
Yeah, Chairman.
Could be good. So we'll come down there, and so,
Well, my
won't be
understanding is,
many.
the only change that you're asking is that Long Marsh Road reflected is the fact that it's Marsh Road, a Class 6 road.
Marsh Road, yeah. Anything else changes you like?
Seeking some clarification on the uses of the property, because like I said, nowhere in it does it reference bouldering and/or climbing. And bouldering is a pretty prominent and common use, especially in our area here.
Yeah, I'm going to repeat that we have made a conscious decision that bouldering and climbing in the part of that property, that it could be done on the northern part above Marsh Road, is not something we're going to advertise. So you're getting that from me, and that's the way that's going to happen, so.
Well, advertised and permitted use.
It's not, the minute we put it in documents, and you have to understand, we have the cliffs on Stonehouse Pond, and that's a heavy use, in fact, overused climbing area, and we don't, Fish and Game and us do not want to see that happening in the area around Round Pond. So if you want that in more black and white, we can say it will be excluded. We're trying to be silent on it.
Okay.
How do you want it?
Silent.
Leave it as is.
Bill will leave that.
I'm sure the lawyers and the insurance company are happy with that.
Seeing none, you will,
So in other words, he'll get those to you and then you can sign
Yeah,
those?
sign it.
You sent it to me.
It's going to you, John, all right?
Yeah,
Very good.
thank you very much for your time, I appreciate it.
I'll forward it to everybody.
Next item on the agenda is public comments. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes, total of 15 minutes per schedule. Anybody with public comments? Please. As usual, state your name, your address, please.
Hello, Lee Elliott, Autumn Lane. I also serve on the Library Board of Trustees. The library campaign was able to find a donor to sponsor a Future Home Of sign for the new library. The sign was posted over the weekend on the property where the new library will be built if the warrant article passes in March. Since the town had already approved of the library's plans to build at this location, we had assumed we could go forward and place the sign. We are sorry to have not asked sooner for a formal permission, but we are here tonight to ask permission to place the sign from the board.
Any questions from the board? Do I have a motion, please? Dan, you have a question?
What about the repair and all that of the sign?
That's not the question. Right now, the question is, can they put the sign
post
there?
the sign there?
Can the sign be put on that location?
Does the trustees carry their own insurance?
No, they're carried through the town. The town carries the insurance, right?
Library.
For the library.
Okay.
Second hot dog?
I'd be perfectly happy to make a motion. I think it's a very wise idea to have the sign indicating where it is townspeople will be considering the property.
I have a motion, I'll second that motion. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you very
Thank you very
much.
much.
Now, the second question relates to what Dan was trying to ask while we were on the first question. The sign was damaged by the wind last night. It was picked up by the highway department. Is it all right for the highway department to repair it and put it back up?
So this is the area that I take exception with, the same area I take exception with the rec department and everybody else, is that we misuse and abuse Peter's time to do stuff that is not highway related. And the whole purpose of what we're doing is trying to give Peter the capacity to do what we need done in the town and make sure our roads and our public buildings that he's responsible for are cared for the way that they're supposed to.
Lee, can you get that sign fixed?
I'm sure we can coordinate that. I just want to also ask the board if the town hall future home of sign is being worked on by Peter in any way.
No, it shouldn't be.
It should not be.
But it shouldn't be.
You want Connor and I to spend our time go out and do it for them? Sure. You're spending a lot more money for us than you are for him.
I'd much rather utilize his time for taking care of the town services.
Why have checked the whole thing spending town money on this in the
In
first
fact,
place.
I'm even willing to go out there with my sledgehammer and pound the rebar in around it and do it for you.
Well, that makes
See you next
two
tomorrow.
of us. What time?
It won't be placed in the ground, it'll be placed on the ground with sandbags. But it's already coordinated, we've worked to work within the town's budget, the budget that the select board set for the promotional messaging material, to include having the banners made locally in Stratford and having the sign constructed willingly by Peter and his crew, and we'll take it out there tomorrow.
Great.
So we're back to the library sign, so,
Can I make a comment?
just wait a minute, we're back to the library sign, so is there any more comments on the library sign?
Yeah, if, Rebecca Butcher, the Lake Road. If the town road agent doesn't have other things to do and says that he's available to fix the sign and it might take less than 1 hour, is that approved by the board?
No, it's not something we do not give positive direction to town employees. That's not part of what we were elected to do. I hate to give you that answer, but the answer would have to be no, because we're not allowed to do that under the RSA.
We are allowed
To direct the road agent for road agent bills, but not for the dope, if he's elected and he's appointed. Please, go ahead.
The question is, does the board have an objection to my asking Peter to put the library sign back up?
I drove by and saw people put them, a bunch of volunteers putting it up Saturday. And then now too, you talk about lawyers and stuff, that's why I asked about the insurance stuff. They did it on their own, we were going off and causing accident or do damage and stuff, and we were responsible anyway.
Yes.
A day like $1 short, they should ask permission and stuff. And then, I don't know, the highway department has a budget, everyone thinks it was called, says, well, you can do it, But Peter has a budget, he doesn't stick by it and stuff, and it just seems like he does too many freebies and stuff. And everyone takes advantage of them around town. We've been called on a couple times, right? And then we asked, this board directed Peter to put up a sign on Garriott Drive to keep you off the rocks, because we inherited the rock pile. That has not been done yet.
Selectman Hadcock. Go ahead.
Total cost of an hour's worth of work, please, is what?
Probably $50.
Okay. I have no objection to expending $50 of town money to fix this sign. We have a few weeks until the election, and at that point, until the warrant article appears before our voters, and at that time, people will be making their decisions. I really, of all the things we could be discussing tonight, I really, $50 is not important to me.
Is that a motion?
Yeah, I'd like to
I'll
make a
second
motion
it.
to allow Peter to fix the darn sign this one time for an hour. And please, for the love of God, hang up the one or put the sandbags around the one on the property, because I firmly believe the two of you have other things you
I
need
have
to
a
do.
motion, I'll second it. Any further discussion? All those in favor of Tracy's motion, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Yeah, no, because I
Now,
didn't.
I'll get to that in a minute. All those that are in favor of it, say aye. Aye. It's two. All those opposed?
Yeah, no, because I didn't
Thank
support,
you.
no, I need to explain my vote.
It's
It's a vote.
I
Vote
didn't-
is no.
No, I vote no for a reason, and I'm gonna explain it. I didn't approve us on these flyers and it being for the town
We have a
hall.
motion, on the table that we're talking about. You can't.
Mr. Chairman, I'm explaining my vote. I can explain my vote any way I want to.
Dan, you can't go and have a complaint against the mailer if.
No, I'm justifying my vote. I can justify my vote.
I think the...
Dan, I think you just need to look at that and give us.
I think you should relax. I can justify my vote. Check the right rules.
So for...
The rules state that we talk about the motion that's on the table.
And
That's where we're at right now. You have said no.
I
So it's a
justify my
2-2
vote.
So the motion does not carry because it's a tie. So the motion does not carry.
Now,
So we appreciate your vote.
I will, as for the library, the same as the town hall, I will gladly volunteer my time to go up there and drive some rebar in and hang the sign if that's what's needed or whatever else is needed. And do it on my own personal time, just like everything else that I do. So I appreciate the fact that people want to do it, but again, for 3 years, I have balked about us mismanaging Peter's time because we ask him to do everybody else's business, and my position doesn't change on that. Whether it's for town stuff, or library, or rec, or anyone else. Because if you talk to Tara, she will tell you I've probably balked more about all the work Peter does for the rec than anyone else. So I will gladly volunteer my time to go up and do it for the library if that's what's needed.
Can they contact you?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And Kim knows exactly how to get a hold of me, and she's sitting right here.
So if you'll contact Andy, if you need help, I'll work with you, Andy, so.
Another quick question.
So is there any other public comment?
Lee Elliott, does this also mean that Peter will not be working on the town hall sign at all?
I would hope not.
Right.
So you'll also be putting that one in?
Necessary,
Sure.
certainly work with Connor to get that in there.
Okay.
I will get my tools out. bring them
I'll
over.
recognize you.
Probably I'll meet you. Any other public comments?
Rick Walker, President of the Firemen's Association, request permission from the board to host our annual pancake breakfast on Maple Sugar Weekend, the 23rd and 24th. Reason we're requesting permission is we want to use the public safety building as we have in the past.
Discussion from the board? Seeing none, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to authorize the Firemen's Association to use the fire department on the 23rd and 24th for their annual, of March, for their annual Firemen's Association breakfast.
Do I have a second? Dan seconds it. Any further discussion?
Why do we call it fire?
Fire person, whatever you want to call it.
All right, here we are. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you very much, Chief.
One last thing, Fire Association proudly sponsors the Explorer Post Troop in the town. We have sponsored for probably 20 plus years the Boy Scout troop in town. And I'm proud to say that we are the first sponsor for the Girls Troop as part of the scouting project. We approved that as an association last week, and we're excited to be involved with this chapter, and we certainly hope to be the sponsoring organization when the first female Eagle Scout is crowned in the town of Barrington, so we're excited about that.
Very good, very good. Any other public comment? Peter?
What am I supposed to do? I've already made the thing for the town sign. It's all ready to go up.
Send the bill. And John will transfer the
I
money.
believe what will happen now is that material that you've put together will be assembled and erected by...
It's already assembled.
Yeah, so it's just erected then?
It's just got to be taken up there and sit on the ground, but you're going to have to do it in a... It's going to take a good-sized vehicle to do it. It's bigger than the back of the pickup truck.
So if it. Thank you, Kurt.
No, I'll just get a truck. I can get a truck. I'm assuming, I'll come over and see you tomorrow, see what it looks like. Figure it out.
Yes. Connor?
So the board approved spending up to $2,000 for a postcard to go to every resident in town and for a sign showing the location of the town hall. So in preparing those products and carrying out the wishes of the board, in looking and working within that budget, the next cheapest option to have the entire sign and the frame constructed was $600. So these signs and with the materials from the highway department is just over $200. And so asking Peter, as a department head, using his judgment about the time and workload that he had available, I asked if that was a reasonable request, and he said absolutely, it wouldn't take him much time at all, and he'd be more than willing to do it and charge the town for the materials. And so, comparing a $600 expense to the town and just over a $200 expense to the town with a little bit of labor, I felt it was a reasonable decision for the budget and task that you set us with to make that decision. All on me, 100% my decision, comparing those options. And I think it wouldn't have been as expedient or possible to do in that budget by other means. And I trusted Peter when he told me it was something he was willing and able to do given the workload at the time. It was in between storms, and that's what he did. And so that's why it's all constructed, ready to go. Signs were finished today, and the plan was to put them out tomorrow. And Peter and I were going to go out and put them out together.
Comments?
If you want to make a motion again, I will change my position. But moving forward, I absolutely will not, and for 3 years that I've said this, will not vote to have us misuse Peter's time. And I will do everything in my power to convince the rest of this board that we are absolutely abusing his time by doing this.
Select Person Hardikoff.
I respect everyone's opinion. I would just like to make a motion to get the sign placed.
There's a motion on the table for the sign post. I'll get with you in a minute.
For both sides?
It's $100.
We have a motion on the table. Do we have a second? I'll second it. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
What's the
All those
motion?
opposed?
The motion is to
Place the two
place the
signs.
two signs.
There's the two signs.
Do we have anybody opposed?
I can't support one of them.
We have two signs that are there.
So you now have a 3-to-1 vote. Moving on.
Moving on, just move on.
You
And I
abstain?
respect.
I vote no because I didn't support this prior to beginning, so I'm going to support it now.
Please, you're the next person for the public comment.
Rebecca Butcher, I just thought, I would just make a general comment around the longevity of these fine employees that we have in the town of Barrington and the respect that we give folks for their autonomy in making decisions around how they do work. And it's really helpful, Connor, to think that you compared prices basically, and sometimes keeping things in-house is sometimes more cost-effective. And while I think, Mr. Knapp, your points are excellent because obviously you're trying to save costs, I think we have to look to the town personnel to make the decision on their use of time, and I just support that. I
Ms.
think
Butcher, thank you very much for your comments, they're appreciated. Is there any other public comment? Seeing none, I'll move on to review the minutes from February 11th.
Those minutes are not available yet.
Moving on, staff reports, Mrs. Scruton.
First thing has to do with the acceptance and authorization to expend grant money and a donation from the Community Mutual Aid Association. In 2017, the town approved $220,000 of federal funds towards this project. What has happened is we need to have an additional $29,998. That money is coming from Community Mutual Aid. There is no direct town money in either of these accounts to purchase this vehicle, so I'm asking the board to authorize the acceptance and expenditure of a total of $249,998, which is an additional $29,998 over the 2017 votes.
Make a motion.
Go ahead, you have a motion?
I'd second it.
Accept and expend $249,998 for the mutual aid money for the air recharge, staff recharge vehicle.
I have a motion and I have a second. Do we have any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries 4-0. And please let the minutes note that Mrs. Hatch was excused from tonight's business, please. John?
The next thing has to do with the vote on the Wildcat turnaround. As I indicated when we talked about 4114A on the Turbocam property, we have had the 2 public hearings. There has not been a petition to forbid the town acquiring this property, and therefore will the board vote to authorize proceeding with the purchase of the Wildcat turnaround land.
Have a motion?
I just have a quick question.
Please.
It was the agreed upon amount was $10,000.
I want to talk in non-public about that, but no more than 10,000, and no more than 10,000 if you want to put it in there.
Okay, I will make a motion for the board to move forward with the Wildcat turnaround with the expectation of spending no more than $10,000.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
4-0 carries, please.
The next item has to do with the fire department staff classification study. The cost is no greater than the current system, and the question becomes, will the board authorize the change?
Motion? Motion to change, please.
Chairperson Bailey, can I open up discussion on this?
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you. Is there any objection to actually considering just raising the stipend amount on this? I'll tell you why. I recently read a study from the New Hampshire Municipal Association that 80% of the departments such as this throughout the state, our size call departments, are still using stipends and are not employees. I would like to both meet the chief's objective to appropriately compensate these volunteers, which to me are invaluable to us, but at the same time, I think should be appropriately compensated. My main objection to this is turning all of these 42 people into employees. My main objection has nothing to do with, I've done enough review of what was sent to us to realize that we can appropriately compensate them by raising the stipend amount. And very quickly, the 4 individuals on this tiered system that has been suggested to us are going to become seasoned firefighters and would move rather quickly with their training into that higher stipend amount. And so I think it would accomplish 2 objectives. It would still meet what the chief has asked us, which is to more appropriately compensate people. But it would also keep us from taking on the responsibility of 42 additional employees.
But if we turned around and those other 4 went up, we'd still have to fill their positions too.
So these are entry-level positions. So my point is that I think we can accomplish what the chief is asking us to do by raising the amount of the stipend and still not take on 42 new employees.
I guess the question, I don't quite understand how that's going to work, but are you envisioning then that there be 8, 9, 10 categories of stipend, reimbursement amounts based on the differing qualification of the person going in, and
No,
that stipend
I'm
be
not.
paid on an hourly basis? How do you envision the stipend to be paid?
It's being paid at the equivalent of about $15 an hour right now, correct, Chief?
But is that quarter hour for quarter hour?
Well, right now, he's paying a minimum of an hour and rounding up to the quarter hour for each of the amounts of allotted time that people are on scene. That would continue, and instead of being paid at a stipend of $15, it would be paid at $16.25.
But that doesn't account for the difference in qualifications, certifications.
No, and I understand that, I really do.
Right.
But I hear you, I do hear you. So, I'm quite certain throughout your career, there have been times that you have held certifications that are outside the scope of your work. and that at different times those certifications become important, but at other portions of your work, those certifications don't add any bearing to the full scope of what you're doing. So I'd like to be able to honor the fact that we have hardworking call firefighters, raise the stipend, encourage them to continue their work, recognize the hard work that they're doing as volunteers without taking on 42 new employees.
So the stipend for someone who is a new hire with no certifications would be the same as someone with a firefighter to a paramedic degree and, you know, a
For
CDL
the
license?
short period of time that they're acquiring firefighter 1, 2, EMS basic,
They're going to
EMS,
be overpaid, you're saying?
they will be slightly overpaid. Think about how many people you'll encourage to jump into that call force.
So you're raising the stipend value to 16 and a quarter.
That would be my recommendation. And based on the numbers that were put forth in front of us, that would be raising the rate for people.
I'd like to give, I have to say, from my standpoint, I have to express my concern all the way along with this. And my concern is once you unlock that door, you never get to close it and lock it again.
Correct.
Where it is a slippery slope.
Yeah.
We very quickly are heading down a road that balloons our town budgets.
And I would like to stay like the other 80% of the departments that have call departments here in the state of New Hampshire.
Dan, you have a comment?
I wasn't gonna make a motion. The table at the, I kicked it along on the table to,
We haven't got a motion yet.
I just wonder, I wanna make a motion, I'll see if I can get a second. I'll table to Dawn Hatch to vote on this. But I'll kick it down to Jared by, we go up with discussion.
You have a motion that's presented to put this, I'll get you in a minute, Chief. The motion has been made to table this until the next meeting. Is there a second on tabling this to the next meeting? I will second that. Now we have a discussion.
No, you don't have discussion on the motion to table.
We got a motion to table, we'll have a vote. So we will, because I can see the way things are going right now, we'll go individually.
Yeah, right.
Article 8.
Haley, aye. Motion doesn't carry, just to the 2 vote. So, Chief, you have comments, please.
I do. Tracy, I just would encourage you to go back and read that study that you read, because that study doesn't say that 80% of the state is on a stipend. It says that 80% of the call firefighters are on a paid per call system, not a stipend system. So I would encourage you, if you're identifying the article that you forwarded to me, you'll see that it's not on a stipend, it's on a paid per call, which is what we're proposing. The other thing is it goes back to, with a stipend system, no matter what you folks decide to do, you can't call it a stipend, because a stipend is paid an amount of money. We use the term stipend, have been using it. That has to change, because it's not a stipend. A stipend is paid to hold the position, and there's no requirement for the amount of work a person has to do to acquire that stipend. And the perfect example of that is when my position was transitioning from a total volunteer position to a paid chief. The chief got a stipend to run the department, but there was never any particular hours assigned to how many hours that I had to do as chief. I was given $5,200 a year or $100 a week to be the fire chief of the department. But there was never anything tied to it, because with a stipend, you can't tie anything to it. So, again, I think that we showed our numbers are not far off, and we're not going to be bringing the vast majority of the people are going to make around $15 an hour, and I think it's important to with this type of structured setup that we have, I think it's important to identify in particular, the people that have certifications to make them officers within the department that are supposed to be able to run the department in my absence, or do that, and for one. And number two, while I don't disagree on the Fire 1 and Fire 2 certification, I certainly take exception to the fact that an EMT basic cannot do nearly as much as an advanced EMT can do, and an advanced EMT and a basic can't do nearly as much as a paramedic can do. And it really comes down to the fact that if, I don't disagree that in a lot of cases, you may not need them paramedic skill sets, but when you need them, you need them. And the other thing to remember is that if our paramedics are responding to a call within the town, that's going to free us up from paying outside agencies between $175 and $400 for a call. So that's just my 2 cents on this. Thank you.
Selectperson Hardikoff.
I don't think currently, Chief, that you're actually staffing every shift with a certified paramedic. Am I correct in saying that?
That is correct.
Okay. So I guess my point in how I just described this to Mr. Scruton is that oftentimes we hold certifications that can be very valuable, and I understand that. But paying for them when they are not always in use does not seem wise to me. But the other portion to this is I have absolutely no objection to honoring this work and paying more money. I have an objection to taking on 42 new employees. I listened tonight to the police chief describe, and a few weeks ago as well, some of the certifications that are specialties to his police department employees. And we don't identify those certifications, to my understanding, and pay for TASER certification training, even though that is a training officer in that role. We do not pay for canine certification officers, even though it is one of the most highly trained and often mentoring individual here in the state. So my objection is not to the amount of money in honoring the person's work. My objection is to taking on 41 or 42 new employees here in the town.
Now that that's been there, I will make a motion to move forward, to authorize what the chief is asking for. I make a motion, do I have a second? I will ask for a second time. Do we have a second? Seeing none, motion doesn't carry, this is dead. Let's move on, John.
Well, I believe Tracy wants to make a motion.
I would like to make a motion to change the amount of compensation from the average of 15 to 16.25 per hour, or per episode, or under whatever system you're currently paying, so that we are appropriately recognizing the service of these individuals.
Second, that, we have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Tony, you had something?
So in looking back at the numbers from the previous years, the average with the differential for officers for the past 2 years was $16.27 per hour. The $15 was what, without any differential, what the average broke out to. So I just wanted to be clear that whereas a lot of people might have made a fair amount of people might have made an average of $15 an hour, the total average for all volunteer hours put in the last 2 years was $16.27 an hour.
Mean or median?
That was the average. That was the mean of all wages per call hour, which is a point for all intents and purposes. For the past 2 years, the average that the town paid per point per call hour was $16.27. And what makes that different than the $15 is the differential for officers, which adds in, which skews that. But just to be clear.
So what impact would raising this to $16.25 to have on those officers, an additional $1.25 an hour,
No, it'll be
right?
a cut for the ones that were above the 1625. If your mean is gonna be 1625, you're gonna have those that were making more than 1625 brought down to 1625 unless you have an opposite differential.
And my understanding is that you, with a
I'm not asking to
stipend,
change any of the differentials.
with a stipend,
You're
my
still leaving the
understanding,
opposite, you're going to 1625 for a base and adding an opposite differential.
my understanding is you can't have a differential with a stipend. Because a stipend can't rely on other aspects of a position. A stipend has to be a stipend. A pure stipend has to be a stipend.
It's a fixed pool of money allocated out on a fair basis and fair being standard of accounting of one for one.
And one of the intents of the chief's original approach to adjust this is recognizing that historically, one of the flaws in this program was not, if somebody didn't accumulate enough points, they didn't get a stipend. And that was a relatively easy administrative fix. The second, more difficult problem to fix was the differential, because you're unable to have a differential with a stipend. And so if the Select Person Hardecroft's proposal to change to $16.25 an hour, my understanding is a stipend of there's $16.25 per point, stipend of $16.25 per point, you'd no longer be able to have any differential with that stipend program. And I know Chief Walker's looked into it a lot also, and you can certainly speak of it if you don't think that's consistent.
So, just so I'm understanding, we have actually approached the state of New Hampshire, described our structure on our call department, and have been told that we cannot pay stipend plus leadership differential, or command scene differential, or whatever we would like to call the leaders in this role. Yes or no, have we asked or have we not asked yet?
Rick, what?
So the state clearly says a stipend is just that. You would stand there and say every firefighter gets X, whether they respond or not.
What does every assistant chief get?
That you would give them X. We would decide that. The problem with a stipend, Tracy, is that if a person made 10 calls this year, they would get the same stipend as the person that made 90 calls this year on a stipend.
I thought you were paying a 1 hour minimum and rounding up by quarter hours.
No, that's what we're proposing to do. What
You
we're,
weren't doing that prior to this?
no, we were paying by a point. And we,
But a point was worth an hour.
correct. And what was happening is as soon as it trickled over 1 hour, they got a second point. So if it was an hour and 10 minutes, they got 2 hours of pay. Because of, as soon as and then if it trickled over a minute past the 2 hour mark, they got a third point. So the proposal that I'm proposing to you folks right now is to say that it would be in a quarter hour. So in effect, we would in theory save some money, because if it was an hour, they'd be being paid for the amount of time they're there, rather than what amounted to be, if it was over an hour, they got 2 hours of pay.
What do you pay
But
for
if we
workers'
did that, we would
compensation
still
on this
be
program?
having 42 new employees.
You pay based off your total payroll. So you're paying, there's a
Well,
rate.
you pay based on your total payroll, John, but then they break it down by categories, and,
His total payroll for call and full-time are the same rate.
okay, that's what I wanted to know.
He has a
So there's-
different rate than police. and
No, I
highway.
understand, so there'd be no impact to the workers' comp. So I'm back to the only thing that changes in this, as I'm understanding it, is we now take on 42 new employees.
I don't see how they're not employees now, as far as.
They're not, they're not,
volunteers.
they're volunteers, John.
But again, if you go back, and we got from the Fair Labor Standards, from the federal government, that they will not become an employee until they make over 20% of what a full-time employee makes. And that's over $12,000 based on a $60,000 salary and benefits package, one individual would have to make $12,000. And as I said 2 weeks ago, we don't have anybody within our system that would even come close to making that kind of money. I think it's important to understand that the vast majority of these people cover what amounts to be 2 to 3 hours of work a week when you look at the call volume that they're going to respond to and the length of the call. So maybe even, in weather like this with windstorms and stuff, somebody might get 6 or 8 hours, but the norm is going to be about 4 hours. So we'll never trigger over an individual that isn't already a part-time employee. They're not going to trigger over that 20% mark. And we sent that to the town attorney. So I trust the information the town attorney gave us, because if there were something there, he actually talked to the federal government, because when I first talked to him, he wasn't sure if it was just salary and benefits, and he came back with the opinion that it's salary and benefits, which we figured on average with the current full-timers, myself excluded, it's about $60,000 a person, which is where they come back with the $12,000. And if I may real quick, if you look at Connor's numbers, I put the extra $10,000 in that line, but the truth of the matter is, looking at the numbers the way that Connor put them in there, I don't anticipate us spending very much at all over what we're already spending, because again, there's so few that are going to go up past the $15 mark, and there's a few that are, the vast majority of the people are going to be exactly where you were saying. If you want to stay in this type of a system, if you're concerned about the different number of tiers or something like that, we could go back and look at that.
I have, honestly, Chief, I have a huge concern. I spent most of my career doing this type of work. Even using a Kronos-based payroll system where it can identify very specifically all of these different areas of certification that you're talking about, a human person has to run a report every week to see when these certifications expire, so that you're certain that you're paying for what is actually in effect. I just personally don't agree with it.
But these certifications on the fire side don't expire, and on the EMS side, the ones that do expire, they're not going to be an employee any longer, because if they don't hold the certification is good for 2 years, and if they don't renew the certification, they can't practice. I have to terminate them.
What about CDLs? Those renew. You have to do your physical every year. CDLs, you do a physical every year.
They don't have to. They're exempt from physicals.
Every 2 years, you need a medical card.
The firefighters driving CDL are exempt from physicals.
Correct.
That's our town rule.
But CDL is one of the certifications he wants to pay.
So, just looking at it, it's $16.25 an hour. It's an average of 14 hours a week. I mean, that's all it is. To hit that $12,000 mark is 14 hours a week.
Yeah, but Andy, that's my point, is that they're not, I'm not going to say that somebody can't do it, but the vast majority of these people are talking $4,000 or $5,000 a year, and that's going to be a really busy year. They're just, that when you look at the fact that just if you round the day up in the 24 hours and they're away for 10 hours a day, give them an hour to go to work somewhere, work their 8-hour shift, and an hour to get back home.
Works an 8-hour shift.
Not me. But that's giving you roughly 14 hours left in the day to be around. Now, that still doesn't take into consideration that people have families and they do things and they go away. And then out of what's left, I mean, in reality, when you look at the fire side numbers, which is what's going to, most of these are going to affect, we do about 400 fire calls a year, so that figures out to be just a little over one a day. And if you said that they weren't available for 1/3 of the calls, that takes 120 calls away. So now you're at about 300 calls, give or take, that if they were available for every single one of them at 2 hours, that's 600 hours. 600 hours times 15 is how much money? $7,500.
So the problem with it is the higher that rate goes, so if you have somebody that's up around 20 bucks an hour, they only need to make 11 hours.
But again, I think if you go back and look at, I think our assistant chief's a perfect example. If you looked at the numbers that he covered last year, he's not covering 11 hours a week. The call volume is just not there.
Okay, and if
I'm just-
something happened, sorry.
Connor has a question, he's had his hand up. And then,
No, I just wanted to add a point of perspective, just looking at the past 2 years, and I think it was a really valuable request, so we could point to specific numbers for questions like that. So in 2017, the person who attended the most calls accumulated 234 points, which if every point was an hour and they were paid at the top of the rate, that's still less than $5,000. And the same is true for 2018. So the average, the mean for 2017 was 80 hours or 80 points. And the median was 65, meaning, that you're pulling it farther down that way. So I think that the numbers from the past 2 years, I don't necessarily think that would be a concern reaching that 20% just based on those numbers, but maybe it'd be worth considering if somebody came close.
Tracy?
Chief, if anything were to happen to you and you were not able to perform your duties, and you have a command call structure for 2 or 3 of these individuals to cover those shifts, wouldn't they then be pushed past that 20% mark?
No, because if you were to move the assistant chief, we don't currently have, the only person that could step in and, because of certifications, the only one that currently could step in and do my position would be the assistant chief, and that would be a discussion that you folks would have to have with him about moving him up to the chief's position or paying him an actual hourly rate. He has a full-time job, and I'm not sure that he's willing to step in and pick up extra hours and stuff, so that would be a conversation that you would have. Certainly, when in 2006 when I had my accident, certainly the whole department rallied around making sure that the department was being run the way it needed to be. They did a great job, and I think in the short term, certainly they would step up and do that. But if something were to happen to me that would require me to be out long term, you would be having a discussion with the assistant chief about some sort of either paying him a flat stipend to kind of fill the gaps and hire people to cover my open shifts, or you would be trying to pay him, but it wouldn't be part of this here. Again, when I went through the budget process, I spent a lot of time trying to make sure that I wouldn't under budget for it. And then when you asked us 2 weeks ago to sit down and look at some numbers, Connor sat down and looked at numbers, I sat down and looked at numbers, and I looked at them a little bit more closely. And I admit that the way I came up with my numbers, I'm happy with where my numbers are, because there was such a small number difference between what I thought we were going to pay and what we would pay under the new system. It was really a short amount of money. But what I didn't understand was that I was looking at, I just took my people, averaged everything out, went, okay, I'm going to be okay, I'm going to have money. And now that I was able to sit down and work with Connor and reflect on these numbers under this new system, I'm pretty comfortable that I'm not sure we would in 2019 that we'll actually touch that $10,000 extra that's there. I think it's important to understand that, I'm comfortable. You've maybe jumped through. You folks have maybe jumped through a lot of hoops in the last 4 or 5 months.
I agree.
You've made me answer some questions, made me work hard to get where we are. I'm comfortable right now that I have presented to you folks a proposal that is not gonna cost the town a lot more money. It may be $1,000 a year or something. Again, if the system works the way I would like it to, if we could have some moderate increases, and when I say moderate increases, based on where we're at right now, that $10,000 that I put in 2019 would probably get trimmed back, and it would take a few years to go up. But more importantly, I think the important thing is that if we can get this system up and running, and we can foster more response, it'll be better all the way around. And I think, Tracy, if you go back and read that first sentence in that article that you directed me to, that 80% are a paid on-call system, which is exactly what I'm trying to do. We're not going to turn our people into part-time employees. We're not meeting that number. I'm comfortable that we're where we need to be.
One last question, Chief. Are you currently doing performance reviews on each of these 42 call people?
I am not.
Are you prepared to do performance reviews on 42 employees?
If I am directed by the Board of Selectmen to do that, I will do that under the stipulation that you allow me to do so many a month, because I could not sit down. You have to understand that I'm a working chief. I'm the only department that we have that does not have an administrative assistant. I'm not asking you for one, but when I have to operate as my own administrative assistant and do my job as a fire chief, it stretches the day out. So if you chose to do a performance review, one of the things I think is important, one of the things I struggled with was I asked the attorney and the Department of Labor, and they have an email, they both agreed. One of the things is that I wanted to put a caveat on that they had to meet a performance from that perspective of the number of calls. And what I said to the Department of Labor and the Federal Department of Labor and the town attorney was, if I put a benchmark that as a responder you have to make 5 calls a month, and if you don't meet them, you're going to be put on probation. After the second month, if you still haven't done it, you'll be moved down to the status of a probationary firefighter or a probationary person until it goes back up. And to a fault, they said, yes, I can do that. I can demote them, move them down to that $10 an hour position. I have to do it in writing, and I cannot do it at the beginning of, I can't do it in the middle of a pay period. I got to do that. So I do have a plan in place to make sure that they hit their benchmarks, and if they don't hit their benchmarks, they would, so in the first month they'd be warned. The second month they would be put, at the end of the second month they'd be put down onto the probationary thing. At the third month, if they hadn't stepped up, we would sit down and have a conversation about whether they should stay on the department or not.
My very last question, if I could, is Lynn, has she figured out how she would, in your payroll system for the town, differentiate all these differentials?
Yes, if I could answer that for you. So what I will have to do is fill out a payroll sheet for every single person, much like John and Connor or the department heads do for the employees when they either get a raise or get hired or something. And we've had the discussion, part of the reason why, in which I think you guys saw the letter today, that I asked the Department of Labor to pay once a month, is because I explained to them that in some cases, these people may only make 1 call a week, and if they made $15 for that one hour call, that's a lot of work and expense for the town to cut a $15 check. And so the Department of Labor agreed with that, and I spoke to Lynn. I think she's comfortable with, we're gonna take a call roster sheet that will put the time of dispatch, time of that the call ends, and people will sign that sheet, and that's how they'll be paid, is off that sheet. So she'll pay off one roster like she currently pays the point system.
Will that roster contain the employee's signature?
Yes.
So did you pick 5 calls because that keeps you just under your budgetary mark?
Nope.
Is that your threshold? Because
Nope.
that keeps you, that puts you at like 31.5.
No, the actual 5 calls was based on, again, people are busy and we understand that they can't make all the calls, and I tried to look at the amount of calls that happen, say from 5 o'clock at night till 5 a.m. in the morning, and take the weekend into consideration, and we felt a 5 was a manageable number. And again, I would love to come back to you guys next year and say that these guys are averaging 7 or 8 calls, and this system's working exactly the way I want it to.
Which means then you gotta come back and you're looking for a rate increase and more money.
I hope, with that $10,000 that's in that line, I hope we wouldn't have to do that for a while. But again, I'll go back to the fact that if this system works the way we want it to, that's perfect. If it doesn't work the way we want it to, then myself or somebody's coming back to you saying we gotta hire some full-time employees, and I don't wanna do that. I'm really trying to get away from that.
This goes back to my concern, is once you do it, you can't unring that bell.
But the more, obviously, the idea is when you put more full-time employees in it creates less avenues for the volunteers to work. So it's a double-edged sword that you try to avoid to the best of our ability. I really don't see, again, looking at my numbers, I wish I would have looked at them a little tighter and been able to say, instead of putting the $10,000 in that line, maybe a little less. And I mean, again, you guys know how I operate. If we don't spend the money, it'll be there at the end of the month, at the end of the year. I'm not gonna use it if we don't need it. But the numbers don't show that I'll use that $10,000.
Does anybody else have any more questions for the chief? Chief, thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Is there any further action you want to take? No, there is not. The motion was failed to. It's 2-2.
Tracy started to make one, but I'm not sure.
No, she didn't make one.
Well, she moved to change the amount of compensation to $16.25, seconded by George.
Yeah,
That's what's on there.
that's all we have right now. So, any further discussion on that motion?
I need someone to refresh my memory. Did we approach and ask if we could pay mandatory differentials on top of the stipend? Just yes or no, but yes?
I didn't ask.
I have not asked that specific question.
Okay.
My understanding is that's not consistent with the rules, but I know that Rick's had more conversations with him.
We can check on that question and vote on this in another 2 weeks when Don's here. I don't have the answer.
I'm of the opinion that we'll both accomplish what we want to and accomplish what we want to.
So is there any further discussion on the motion? All right, we'll take a vote. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. All those who oppose say aye.
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 Opposed?
Opposed.
Aye.
So that fails, and now we go back to...
So now that
I'll ask the question and
So-
in 2 weeks we'll look at it again.
Okay.
So how many people voted?
Three
For an
voted,
extension.
3 voted against it and one did not.
Tracy abstained.
I need an answer. I mean, again.
No, nobody's questioning your answer. We can understand that, but
I truly wish that when things like this come up that are earth-shattering when it comes to decisions, that like, here's your full packet of information.
And that brings me up to the thing.
the discussion has been closed for that last vote, so we're all set. So, go ahead, Mr. Harris.
A lot of things on the reviews of a lot of things triggered from this, and the comments from Chief and from Connor, the review process and stuff, and the steps and stuff. I feel we have problems with our review process in the whole town, and steps and COLAs, well, not the COLAs, but grades, whatever. And we are forming a committee to look at that. And I think we had a lot of homework, so we identify this stuff in my mindset.
Definitely, you're absolutely right.
And I hate to bring this all in, but everything starts generating in my mind. It's all adding up to that one thing.
That we're not up to date on our performance reviews and our range structure.
Right.
This is even outside the range structure. I assume that this is not included in our current range structure, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so if we ask the question...
Would you move forward, please?
So if we ask the question, can we pay at the higher base rate plus differentials to a volunteer? And the answer is yes. Are we then still accomplishing what we wanted to achieve? Yes? If the answer that the state gives us is that we can in fact pay the higher base amount and pay a differential for command.
So I guess what I'm asking is when you talk about a base amount, are you looking to stay on a point system so that they get points, and then at the end of the month there would be extra points, if you would, for people that are higher? Or are you looking at giving everybody a set amount of money and then paying a bonus? Because, I mean, again, I guess I'm a little bit confused, and that's really the reason I came back up here, was to make sure that we have good information for you folks. To me, there's two ways of doing this. We either assign points based on the call, or we have a rate that is, for lack of a different way of putting it, an hourly rate, which is what I proposed. So to me, there's really only two ways to do it, and I guess I would like to know is what you want me to go back and figure out so that I can come back to you folks with, assuming the Department of Labor says you can, yes, we can do something for command structure.
A point was equal to an hour, correct?
Loosely.
Okay. And the stipend that was being paid for a point was 15.
Correct.
And you, in addition to that, were paying command individuals for a differential.
No.
So everyone was getting the same amount.
Yes.
So all we need to know is it lawful to pay a call firefighter the stipend that we're currently paying for a point, and for command structure, an additional differential? And if the answer is no, then there's the answer, and we have to make a choice. And if the answer is yes, then I would immediately want to institute that.
So, again, if they say yes, are you asking me to come back with a different document to you with a recommendation of how we pay command staff over what, everybody has a base rate and then pay the command staff a different rate? Is that what you're asking me to do? Again, what I'm trying to find out is what information to bring to you next in 2 weeks.
You've suggested 8 different differentials. We just need to know, can we pay a differential on top of the point system stipend?
Okay.
And if the answer is yes, we accomplish the same thing that we're trying to accomplish in the first place.
I would like to see us, if we have the command structure, have the command structure be at a certain rate, change their rate, then have the other rate for the other part of the stipend.
If it's allowed.
Yeah, if it's allowed.
Okay.
So that way we won't have to pay a bonus on top of for the command structure. We'll just give them a different rate, and everybody else have a different rate also.
So,
See if that's legal to do it that way.
so
And also check on the way Tracy said it, so that we could, if we pay everybody the same, and then we have an additional rate for the command structure rate.
So and again, just because now I'm still confused.
I think the reality is, Chief, as an employee of anything, whether it's a municipality or a business or a nonprofit, you have more rights as an employee And along with that, you as their chief have more responsibility overseeing 42 employees. And I know that that seems like a very tiny leap, but it is not. It is a huge leap. And I think the biggest concern that the board has been that huge leap. And I guess I'm hoping that there's a way to accomplish what you would like to do, which is compensate, honor, and
So,
recognize, and then at the same time, not take on 42 new employees.
so if I hear what you and tell me if I'm wrong, what I think I hear you folks are telling me is that I would come back to you with a point system like we already use, but I would say that Tracy's points are gonna be worth $20 and Rick Walker's points are gonna be worth $16 and Andy's point might be worth $12. Is that what you're
Andy
telling me?
5, Chief. Can we just give Andy 5?
Initially, I do want to point out, if I go by the New Hampshire Occupational Employment Wage Guidelines, we're not, what we've been talking about even monetarily wise does not even align with what is entry to expert letter to experienced wage on those scales, and that is based on the 2018 wage system that they put out. We will be, well, in some cases we're above, and in some cases we're below. Yeah.
So, I apologize, but again, we've been beating on this for a few months. I thought,
Because compensation's not easy, Chief.
I get that,
It's not.
but, really what I would like
People think it
to,
is. It's not.
I would really like to be able to come back here in 2 weeks with whatever information you feel you folks can need to make a decision one way or the other. I just need you folks, I consistently ask you folks, tell me what you need for the next meeting, and there's been a couple times where the bar has changed, and it is what it is. So
I agree.
I want to try to avoid that bar. It is time to be fair to me and say, Chief, come back here with this information. I acknowledge that I screwed up and didn't get the information from the Department of Labor as quickly as I should have, and I
So
apologize.
I heard 2 questions that we needed answered. The first question was one posed by Chairperson Bailey, which is, can we pay varying levels of the stipend per point and base it upon command structure? That was one question. And mine was simply, based on the 7 or 8 certifications that you wanted to pay for, whether it was 75 cents, $1, $1.25, $1.50, is it appropriate with a call volunteer department like this to have a base stipend and then implement your system you're suggesting of certifications? So those are 2 questions. I think if we had the answers to those, it would be helpful. And if they come back and they say no, then we only have one thing to vote on, which is your original proposal.
Very good, thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll move on. John?
Green Hill Road Bridge, the archaeology study that was approved, we needed to have a funding source, and I proposed a transportation fee capital reserve. So will the board vote to expend the $2,553.70 for Green Hill Road engineering for archaeology study needs by HTA, and to request, this is the part that was missing, the trustees to provide funds from the transportation fee capital reserve.
Dan?
What part of that didn't have to be done? He said it would,
You needed to do, where are you getting the money from?
no. He said it wasn't needed for the 80-20% to do all of it.
You have to do the 2553, yeah.
We have to do phase 1 of it?
Yep.
All right.
And then that might tell us we need to do phase 2, but we won't know until 1 is.
But we don't have to, because
I mean, his comment was based on what he's seen, he doesn't anticipate a phase 2.
That's right.
I would be very surprised if there's anything there.
And it's 3 excavation sites is what they're saying. It's a bucket and shovel, like
Yeah.
excavation.
He's looking for undisturbed soil.
See what's there.
Um,
Can I have a motion, please?
Yeah, I'll make the motion to approve the expenditure of $2,553.70.
What fund though?
To request the trustee.
I have to
Come out.
for the Green Hill Engineering Project to come from, to
Transportation.
request from the trustees to come from the Transportation Fee Capital Reserve.
I'd second that.
I have a second. Any further discussion?
Yeah, my general discussion that I brought up before, that I think, that I am dissatisfied with HTA and the work that they've been performing for us, and I'm requesting that we find other engineering firms to start using, because we're not getting, we're overspending for what we're getting, in my personal opinion. Also, based on the conversation they had last week, I validated the fact that when you look at pre-stressed concrete, they have an engineer on site who actually does validate all the pre-stressed concrete the way it's designed to be, and provides that to them.
The discussion we had last meeting was not what I call a complete discussion. People understand, that's my personal opinion. I'm not an engineer. Is there any other comments to make before we have a vote?
No, I agree with that, but there is, it's subject to change, because when the final bill comes in, we'll see what it is.
Yeah, but right now we have, I agree with you.
On the other project.
Yeah.
And then,
And maybe someday we can get inspections.
All right, any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye. 4-0 has it. Thank you, John. Thank you, everyone.
so I am requesting that we do seek other engineers, and I want to know the rest of the board's opinion on that, because the fact that we only use HTA, and I feel like we're getting taken advantage of, yet we keep going back to the same punch bowl over and over again.
When the next project comes up, I agree with you wholeheartedly.
Why do we have to wait for the next project? Why would we not start the process now?
Yeah, then they're qualified too,
Yep.
and they're on the list and stuff, and then we can use it for reference.
I would love to have 3 engineering firms bidding against each other that are all pre-qualified to do all this work.
Most of these, you can't select the price until you select the firm, because the way the state wants it done is qualification only and not on price.
I understand that, but I'd like to have 3 qualified firms that we're using, because we did not have, I don't think HTA did us any favors with Young Road, and I drive it pretty much
Definitely didn't
every
do
day,
that,
and I
definitely.
see that. And
We can put out an RFQ for engineering.
Right, and then too, when we went through the review and stuff, there's other firms that are capable of it and stuff. And then Du Bois King did some culverts, and there's some arch things.
It's
There's
strange.
2 different standards. When we're doing like Du Bois and King for town work, we don't have to use an RFQ process that's approved by the state with an engineer that the state's approved the process with and everything. When we're doing the 80% match money, that's when the state gets to say how you have to select the engineer.
I would prefer to have
Yeah,
a
but-
few engineers in our pocket as to just one.
But Du Bois King's on that list, they've done other projects.
They're not, the selection process for Du Bois and King did not meet the state requirement. We'd have to redo the process. Du Bois and King could apply, they could end up being approved, but you have to select a process that you follow.
Does the board unanimously agree with putting out an RFQ for additional engineering firms to do our bridge work?
Yes.
Yeah, I've said that already.
Based on the information that you've shared with me over the past 12 months, I agree with that.
Thank you.
Okay, we talked about it later. John?
Okay, job descriptions. One of the things that has been discussed is updating job descriptions at the time we do evaluations every year. It's obvious that if it's a department head with a substantive change or a substantive change in another position, such as what we're doing with the tax collector, revenue clerk, or the assessment clerk, building inspector, that it comes to the board. But at what point do we have to bring job descriptions for employees other than department head to the board relating to grammar, edits, reformat, physical requirements, those items.
Discussion? Dan?
She was ladies first, she was
All
first.
right, Tracy?
I'm of the opinion that 33% of the essential position functions of a job have changed. It should be brought before the select board.
33%.
So in some cases, you may have 12 essential position functions, only 4 of them get reworded. You bring it before the select board. But if 2 of them do, probably not. So I think I'm of the opinion that 33% would trigger a review by the board.
Dan?
Over the course of the month.
Well, I think this kind of goes with the,
I was going to say over the course of the year, because I could see.
Please.
I think this goes, I think it should come to the board and stuff because we need, for all the structure of the steps and raises with this committee's foreman and stuff, identify things, we need a better understanding and stuff, how people, they should be paid for that job description and their performance and stuff. So I think that all ties into that. So I think we're premature.
Did somebody else have a comment?
So in order to do a compensation or a range review, you have to have updated job description, which we currently don't have. So if over the course of the next year, as the compensation committee is meeting and pulling together an execution plan of how to approach an RFP and what questions they would ask within that RFP, what they would be analyzing in that RFP, as that's being designed, at the same time, Connor will be working with every employee that's being reviewed to review their position description and update it. So that when all of those are turned over to be reviewed, at that time, they are the most updated material to use. But throughout the course of that year, as people are being evaluated, if there is a 33% or more fundamental change in the position description, which would show up in the essential position functions, then it would be brought before the board because clearly that's a huge change to the job.
Any other discussion? Andy?
No, I agree. I mean, I'm actually doing the same thing
So,
for work, so I
they have to get these updated in order to do the
Right.
range study. Because if
I know
those
that.
are the driving force behind defining parity with external positions that you're measuring.
That was one of the reasons why I turned around and I asked Connor when he sent it up and have everybody review, the individual review their job description and add to it what the jobs they're asked to do in the position.
Yeah.
And then it goes back to the department and then it comes back for us to review it with. So that you get it upright. And then you have some individuals who look at that and they go, I've never done that. So you look for those same type of comments.
Right.
It's just a protection for the town. Yeah.
And it's excellent for both the supervisor and the employee because it allows them that open dialogue of, hey, you may not know that I do this every week, but did you know I'm responsible for X, Y, and Z, and it's just been getting done?
Yep.
That happens.
Yep.
And that's, it says a lot about the dedication of the employee when that happens, but it does happen.
So we want to stick with the 33% as recommended
Yeah.
by Select Person Hardikoff.
I will second Tracy's motion to go with 33%.
All in favor?
Yeah, right.
Hardikoff, aye.
Yeah, fine.
Bailey, aye.
Related
Okay, John.
to this, the suggestion was made that we have a town employee on that committee. My suggestion would be Lynn as the HR director be on the committee.
I don't feel
With
appropriate.
Tracy, Andy.
I think that we should have her and then have another one that goes with it. Have one that if you roving every year, leave Lynn on it as the HR director. So we put 2 of them on there. We have one that gives everybody a chance to come from different areas and be on the committee for a year. It's just my suggestion. If you don't like it, tell me.
I don't like it.
I don't like
That's
it
all,
either.
that's what I wanted.
I actually don't think we should call this a committee for compensation. It should be a task force that disbands once we've gotten to how you approach your range review.
Second that motion.
Okay. Go ahead, John.
Okay, the next thing has to do with the pilot with Rochester. I recommend the board formally terminate the agreement for the pilot under RSA 7211, go to tax it at full value for the land.
I'll make the motion.
I'd second that motion.
Any further discussion? When's the meeting tomorrow, John? Just a minute, please.
Oh,
6 o'clock here.
Okay.
and I will be at the Stratford Select Board regarding the detour for Old Canaan.
So you
Very
go
good.
on you going to the pilot meeting? Okay.
No.
Okay.
I'll be here. It's not a pilot meeting, it's for Round Pond, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Round
Okay.
Pond meeting. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. The motion carries, John.
Okay. We've already taken care of the library sign, just for information. Someone asked about the revolving fund, $26,650 was paid to reimburse for precision paving work on the parking lot. Also conservation fund.
The parking lot at the town hall?
No, parking lot by the playground.
Where was the 24 grand, was that put in for the construction? That construction?
$26,650.
That's for paving.
Right.
Where's the construction part of it?
What, you mean the payment for Peter's time?
Right.
I don't see that.
That was supposed to be reimbursed too.
We'll check the minutes, I'm not sure of that.
Yeah, it is.
Yes.
It was very clearly, yeah.
And Du Bois King estimated 24 grand, and I don't know what the Peter's estimate was.
Yeah, we'd have to watch the, probably that video all over again, John, but I'm pretty
Okay.
clear that.
I'll
that
check,
the
well, we
board-
checked the minutes, it could be.
That has to do with the bills that I had asked for that came from Peter's department that was sent to the rec. I've asked to see all of those, and at present time I have not seen them. Also, everybody in the board is
Someone
aware.
has been making the meetings.
Mr. Ayer, please, that was unfair.
I'll have select person air know that I am the only person who showed up at the last meeting and it got canceled at the last minute as I stood there and turned around and walked out.
That's probably why they canceled
Thank
it.
you very much.
You know that, Tracy? That's probably why they canceled it.
That
You
was a
showed up.
snowstorm. Thank you, Chairperson Bailey. Okay.
All right, so as soon as I have all of those figures and everything else, I will share it with the board.
Thank you.
We continue to work on that conservation fund, the amount due from conservation to the town and from the town to the conservation. It appears at this point that it goes back to sometime in 2008 or 9, before we were doing CPA audits and before I was here, that the balance existed, that the Conservation Commission owed the town money, and we're still trying to figure out why.
Can we get like a legit balance sheet? Because following this thing, I'm like, okay, that's a debit, that's a credit, that doesn't add up. The math of it doesn't follow.
Well, this is the auditors, and what it is you're not adding everything, it's showing what was remitted, but it's an accrual-based auditing. It's accrual-based.
Yeah, I can't get the math to work on it.
The math works.
Can I comment on this?
If I can,
It's impossible.
there's one place where it doesn't work, which is that note $10,000 difference, which might have been due to timing. The difference occurred that whether it was on the accrual of the land use change tax bills that were being sent or the revenue that was received as to what was sent to the conservation for the prior year, 75%, or in the earlier years, 50% was sent to conservation. This 500, the big one, the 510,000 is basically, the bulk of it is Califf, and there was Renner and Montfeet in there.
I guess my only point in this, John, is going back 5 years, you have some type of auditor's notes that indicate there was a balance due from the conservation fund.
Correct. And we asked, they took it from the prior auditor. The prior auditor took it from when they first arrived in 2010. There had been no audits for several years when I arrived in 2011. And one thing the auditor had to do is reconstruct the books going back into 9 and 10 because of the fact there hadn't been audits done. And the accountant who was working with the town at that point had said that in 2008, conservation owed the town X number of dollars, and then that number just kept getting carried forward with the pluses and minuses from there. It should have been straightened out
11
back in...
years later, we're
Right.
talking about a line item worth that much money?
Yep, that's one of the issues with trying to get straightened out. It shouldn't have gone on this long.
Have we had manager's note in our audit every year on this?
The audit,
Have we?
the audit has shown a balance due, but not the total that is showing here, which is a question I had for the auditor.
And
Why?
there's never been a manager's note indicating that we were off in our audit based on this.
No.
Dan, you have a comment?
This scares me, because it's pretty simple, I have a simple mind, and to track conservation is not that hard, but I'm wondering, we go back to Tamposi Border Chart, $10 million that was awarded to the town, we just closed that out last year, so where did all that money go?
Yeah, that's back in that time frame. That's why I'm saying, if you go back to 7, 8, and 9,
So, but
and
they,
there was huge amounts going into the land use change tax back then. I know Connor's looked back with Peter Royce, they went back through all the land use change taxes back into that time period. So that's apparently where it developed. We're trying to find out if it's legitimate or if it should have been written off years ago.
but we just paid off that bond too, I think it all goes back into that era.
It could be that the Vodachuk, it could be a double payment back then. It could be payment was made but not accurately recorded. We're not quite sure what the problem is. But what I'm saying to John Wallace is I have no plans to try to have them pay us from the conservation fund, but on the other hand, I'm not paying him the 2018 money of $86,000
Well,
until we fix this. So
Well, I think,
you know, incentive on
hold on.
fixing it.
I don't, that money,
That's our decision.
yeah, it's our decision, and that was done by town vote. So we just can't stop that, we have to look
If
at.
they owe us $170,000, then why are we gonna pay them the 86 if we're not sure until we find out just what they owe?
I know, we need to find out, because it was,
Well,
I fully
That's what
agree.
he's saying, that's
And I'm
what,
saying we're gonna try to have our auditor work on it this year.
well, I think we should be more
we have-
aggressive.
we also have to take into
We think-
consideration, we can't authorize any expenditures until we get this done, so the sooner the auditors get this worked out, we're all gonna be, so, you know, we can't do anything right now, except let everybody know that we're not.
They have
It's not muddy the water.
$75,000 committed, I believe, right
Exactly
now.
right. Let the auditors finish figuring this out, then we go from there.
They have money committed already.
I know, but according to Peter Royce, they have well over $270,000,
They should have
total,
that.
from which they only, John Wallace believes he still has 142, of which 40 more is committed, bringing him down. He believes he has available still 100,000, plus we owe him 86, which more than covers right now whatever the balance is, if in fact they owe it all. If they don't, we may owe them more money. We got to figure that out.
We haven't authorized the expenditures of the Conservation Commission, so
By the
Wow.
time you pay for a forensic audit, you're gonna eat up with that money.
Yeah, we're not going to pay for a forensic audit. Why not? We're trying the best we can.
Why not?
How else are you gonna find out?
You want to spend
what
$90,000 to figure out 157?
No, they ain't
Then
that
we're
much
not going to
money.
do a forensic audit.
So I have two general comments. One, thank you for proving my point that the math doesn't add up, with the exception of the $10,000.
Okay.
Thank you. And the second one is, if we have this here, are there other areas where we run the risk of having balance and accounting errors with our checkbook?
2 years ago, they straightened out a rec issue, and I think that's the last, I think conservation is the last one we have.
So will we be doing a full audit again this year?
Yes.
Okay. Can we employ the fact that there is some extra diligence and thoroughness to look at everything and make sure we're not missing something in there?
We can ask. Everything goes back to the beginning balances in 2010 because of the shape the books were in from 2006, 7, and 8, and 9. The beginning balances the final product is only as accurate as the beginning balances are. They can track everything since then, but if the beginning balances were the problem, they may not be able to accurately solve it. But this should have been resolved several years ago, I know.
Well,
I think that really is my point.
Yes.
This has been going on for
Shouldn't have gone on this long.
long before any of us, well, except for George, because he's been on the oldest term.
George was here when it happened.
I know, I mean, it's a joke.
No, let's understand. I've got a splinter too, if you want to see it.
Okay.
Well, we made-
Where are we at?
We made-
With Jerry?
It's
John-
just an update on you as to what's going on and why, if Conservation says, how come we haven't sent them the 2018 land use change tax? That's why I haven't sent them the money yet.
Okay, with that, you got any further questions? Seeing none?
well, I want to get this straightened out because I don't feel comfortable and stuff, because
Well, that's what we're doing, yeah.
it needs to be straightened out.
Yeah, we know that, yeah.
The Conservation Commission has not made any commitments beyond what we're sure they have.
Really?
Yeah.
So the roof sign, that's all done?
That's, I wouldn't say it's all done, but there's 40,000 which they're working on, and they have more than that. If you take the 157, which is the top number that we believe could be outstanding from 2008 or 9, and you add the 86, it's more than what they, it's more than enough to cover everything.
And the,
86 plus.
there's two projects going out to bid for parking, the bar property and,
You're not talking that kind of money. You've got plenty of money. If you're going out buying, no, that's not, it can't be that far, it can't be off the size of the bond.
but they have money committed, that's all I'm trying to say.
The number that's being carried forward is around 157,000 that they may owe us, but I have serious questions on that total. I think it could be as low as 63,000, it might be nothing, but it's not, we're pretty sure it's not any higher than 157. And we already owe them 86, so that's a difference of 71,000, and they have not committed down to where they only have 71,000 uncommitted in their funds that they know they have.
The only way we're all gonna be sure is we have to wait until the auditor's finished, because right now we have no way of saying, we're going by ifs and thinks, and should be's and could be's.
Well, here's another thing too, like we brought up earlier, this board directly said it was, the director supposed to reimburse us on the construction part. We haven't got that, but we're paying with the pavement now, so that's overlooked.
Where are you at now? Where,
That's money, that's money right
on the
there.
right?
That they owe us.
But we're talking.
I know, it still goes into the general fund, our account, balance or whatever. The audit, during the audit, everything's to add out, at least my checking account does.
As I said to you earlier, sir, I've asked for all those bills to come and for John to pull them together with the help of Peter's department and with Connor. And when I got those, I said we'd bring them all forward. Right now, we're on the Conservation Commission, so they should be
Well,
making.
we're talking about what messed up money in the
That's
audits.
what we said we have, but the audit now is going for the Conservation Commission, so they should really take it upon themselves not to make any huge commitments until we find out where the audit is. That's only normal business. So we're at that point, and so John has let us know where we're at. So once we have the audit, and then we find out what's going on, then we will have a figure to go from.
And then we have to update the dam too, what's going on with that.
That's the same stuff.
That is money, who's paying for that, us or the conservation?
That's where they have to wait for the audit to be finished. They can't move ahead on that until we find out where their balance stands. It's good practice, as you had said earlier.
Well, the state's not gonna wait.
I know that, but you had this, he wants to discuss it, we're going to discuss it. Anything else? Seeing none, John?
That's it for me.
Suzanne?
I have vendor manifest dated February 21st, payroll manifest dated February 21st, abatement number 3 And I had sent you a memo requesting approval to authorize John to, regarding approving credits and exemptions. That I do it now, I was authorized by the board to do it, and with my upcoming retirement, I'm asking the board to give this authority to John.
Actually, to the town administrator.
Town administrator,
Position.
yeah, it's a position, yeah. The applications are all being reviewed by the contract assessor. But we're training Amanda to do that job. And at some point, we want something formal to authorize the town administrator to authorize somebody in the office to sign, instead of them coming to the board, as we've done for years.
So you want to change policy?
No, I'm not changing the policy, because I'm the one that has the authority now to sign these. The board had given me the authority to approve and sign these. I'm gonna be leaving,
You know when you're leaving, please?
June.
Okay, we have
Do I have a date?
No, but we have time in June.
I know, but you don't wanna do this now?
No.
Not really. Put it down for regular agenda meeting.
Yeah.
We'll put it in the like.
It's a yes or no thing.
Everybody understands that.
Nobody saw this?
There.
Did nobody get this?
No?
I have it right here.
Yes, I sent it with the agenda on Wednesday.
The agenda got changed so many times.
The last I read was a revised agenda. I didn't see
You didn't get this?
I'm not saying you didn't send it, I'm saying we all read the agenda, but I don't know.
It's not using the mail.
Everybody, just so everybody knows, please, when you go into 365, look under group section. It's in the group section of 365. That's how I found it.
Anything in the group section would have been forwarded to somebody's individual email also by default.
It didn't come out that way in mine, sir.
Hang on.
I apologize, I'll look into that.
I got a revised agenda from Connor, and in both a PDF and a docs. Hang on.
Put it on the agenda for next.
Because I did it on the 20th.
I don't have it.
Yeah.
I'm looking right at my phone.
Suzanne, it came out underneath
I
the
have
groups.
nothing from you on the 20th,
So we'll put that on the agenda for later.
and I haven't deleted anything, so.
Look at Did you get an agenda? You never get an agenda either?
No, I have nothing. I have
Agenda
no
wasn't
email
done.
from you on the 20th.
I sent an agenda on Wednesday before I left.
The
And then it
20th.
was revised as
Right.
on
It
Thursday.
was revised twice.
Right.
I got Connor's revised agenda. I'm just looking at the email.
How about you, Andy?
I never get it. Like, for some reason, I've got to actually go to my IT department because I think your email is.
Well, I've got to start sending them to both to yours again.
Yeah, I got it when you sent
No,
it to my
we can't be doing
other
it.
one.
We're supposed to be going.
Well, no,
We
I
have
just have
that-
to make sure I'm using I just got to make sure I'm using my .gov account.
We have that email set for a reason.
Yep.
Yeah, Suzanne, I honestly, the last thing I have from you is the DES.
That was the other day.
The only,
So-
yeah, my only problem is like if you're really trying to get in touch with me quickly, my work account is the fastest way to get in touch with me.
I'm getting in the
or-
car and driving over.
Not because I got logged into the
I actually, I have where it says Suzanne McNeil, Andy Knapp, and 6 others, which I assume includes all of the board members, yes. I have where it was sent February 2nd, 1:59.
February
I mean, 20th, February 20th,
And I'm
1:59.
telling you, it never came.
I know, I'm just.
Not to be
she said it.
labor it, but I see that also, so I'd be really interested to look at it specifically. So
I don't know,
we're
I don't know
what-
why it didn't come. but
what
I
has
can see
happened
where it was
is-
sent.
we'll look at it.
Your email and mine do not mix. I've been to Connor twice. There's something between you and I in the email list, so it might affect somebody else. The emails do not get to each other. Mine always go to that other mistake folder there.
So are you
I
getting,
don't disagree.
are you
I don't-
getting minutes?
But there's something that has to be looked at.
Is that, you getting minutes?
Yeah.
We'll look into it.
Yeah, I don't know why. I
Normally
mean,
I get them.
you and I.
Send them to
I just
the
got
other.
mailing them.
So, George, I think
No,
we know
this
it's all
whole-
oil and water.
We went to this new government email for a reason.
No, it's,
You know, I would just like to say I'm a very thick-skinned individual, and you guys
we don't have any
are really on your
alligators here.
game tonight, and I'm really tired, so knock it off.
It's like.
We don't have any alligators, you know that.
Because it is been a really long day.
Yeah.
All my hard work and nobody ever gets it.
I used one time and I appreciate it.
No, on your phone.
No.
You don't have it on your phone?
I have it on my
Not the
phone.
one.
Would you do me a favor, would you pull it up, 365, and see if you have a group setting on yours?
What's a group set?
I don't, no.
I didn't bring my phone tonight. 'cause I didn't want to-
All right.
Okay, are we finishing this?
No, hold on.
Or are we going in?
So-
I did, so as we can go.
I got focused and other, filter, unread.
I got Amy Knapp and 5 others. Well, that's all.
Okay, so we did.
But why do I have Amy Knapp and Turbo Cam plus 5 others?
I don't know, but the turbo cam one from Suzanne never comes through. That's been a historic problem.
Why there? Okay.
All right.
I tried.
We appreciate it.
See, you don't know what you're missing.
Those more conversation.
That's why I get it like here.
Maybe I actually
Instead of
sent my
here.
resignation.
So the only one,
You can't retire.
That's what I just said.
That's right.
so,
Accepting.
We'll have to send Paul by himself.
Yeah, if we don't accept it, can you really retire?
Yeah.
No, no, really, that's a really
So-
valid question.
All right, folks.
excuse me,
Go ahead, what do you got?
I got New Hampshire government for everyone except for me.
I got one drive.
Can we go on to the next subject?
Yeah.
We're getting a late night.
Yeah, here we go.
We'll get to midnight.
All right,
Now down to select persons report and concerns.
All right, the old business has been conducted. Is there any other old business you want to discuss? We've discussed these 3 already. Seeing none, we have new business. Anybody have anything on the new business to discuss? Seeing none, we'll go to the selectmen's report.
I just wanted to point out, since I handed out to the board, these will be hitting mailboxes the first full week of March, as you've all reviewed them. There's 4 of these signs that we put up probably tomorrow, and then the large sign in front of the site will be likely put up tomorrow.
Great.
Just for your
And make sure they're in the proper area, out of the right of ways.
I know the right of ways. I like
We plan to
the,
follow up policies.
I like that, these will be there the first week of March. I think that's a good time.
That's all.
Is, what's that, where did St. Jean go?
He's never here.
He
just
was
walked by.
here the whole time.
Oh, is he?
Probably taking a nap.
No, he was here the whole time.
Yeah, he was.
He just
I
left.
got a question to ask.
She just left?
He just left.
All right, so we're down to Selectman Air, Select Person Air.
No, it's like board. I'm on the board now. I graduated. I
Who?
I was
Can I see
able-
the poll, please? I can't discuss it, 'cause I
That's
need a
a
whole week.
punchy
to-
night. Come on, I
Go.
want to get going.
well,
Report.
I had the pleasure and the honor to miss the conservation last Thursday and to meet the candidates night. And there's,
Oh, yeah, I watched you guys. You did a very good job.
Thank you.
yeah, we got beat up a little bit, but
No, you did a very good job.
I don't know, but we had a lot more questions than we thought.
That's on Facebook.
That's all right.
Okay, anything else?
Town's Land Committee meets soon, to go over some things. They haven't set a date yet. I'll give you posted when I do.
Thank you. Next person, Select Person, Hardikoff.
The rec department canceled their meeting due to a storm. And when I arrived on scene, I found that out, and it is not being rescheduled, so the material that was to be covered will be covered at the next meeting. Which gave me the night off, you're correct.
This didn't happen.
All right, planning board, let's see here. Sorry, got all my stuff spread out. We did a design review for Mr. Falzoni on 125. I was recused from it because being part of the select board and the fact that we may acquire a lot from it, it was would not be good practice for me to be sitting there through his review.
Excellent idea.
There are 55 lots in the subdivision and 5 commercial lots. If anybody would like to see the plan, I have a copy of it. There you are. Also, we went over the zoning regulation or proposed zoning regulation for solar regulation in the town and made some amendments and changes to that. And that pretty much concluded the meeting. There's another meeting on the, there'll be, for the next meeting on the 5th, there is a request for a small home business and also a proposal that we're looking at for Sterling Realty on Old Concord Turnpike, who is looking to construct a 1,400 square foot garage in their existing parking area. So that is what was reviewed of the planning board. No, I thought I had one other
Sorry?
item, but I clearly don't remember what it was, and at this point, it's probably not even relevant, so I'm just gonna, the meeting on the 11th, I will be taking a red-eye back into town from the 10th to the 11th, so hopefully I intend to be here, but we'll see what type of shape I'm in coming back from the West Coast.
Hope you enjoy yourself out there.
I'm going to Whistler. I have every intention of enjoying myself.
Canadian West Coast.
All right, mine is, I went to the library meeting. Currently, the fundraising is up to $476,073. They have raised towards the new library project. Upcoming events, the candidates night was there. The Saturday, March 9th is meet and greet at the Barrington Public Library from 12:30 to 2:30 for the candidates. So encourage everybody to go. And March 23rd is Books in Bloom at the Barrington, it's on a Saturday, so that will be on the library. And that is all that I have to report on for that. Signage, we have to remember that the signage, I've already spoken to one of the trustees for the library. It's going to ensure that we get back. You can't put political signs on telephone poles. Several of the people who are putting signs up for the library has done that, and I requested that they look into it. And they said they would take care of that for us.
And a lot of them, the signs, the red signs, are in state right away. The state will open come up.
That's, I have nothing to do with the state, that's it, I will relay that to them also. And I'll give another call, so that's all I have for that. I was going to ask Ray St. Jean on the voting as to who?
Ron.
I'm sorry, Ron. As to who would be allowed to be inside for that there, I'm sorry, what?
Sorry, inside joke.
Oh, okay. So anyway, so that's where that's at, so we'll find out who's going to allow there because of the articles on the, for voting. That's all I have. Any other public comments?
Yep.
Okay. Chief?
Real quick.
3 minutes for public comment.
Less than that. The fire department celebrates in 2019 their 75th anniversary, so we'll be having, as the year goes on, we'll be doing some kind of a thing. 300th anniversary committee report, haven't reported for a while. We were generously offered a free website from an individual in town, so we intend to take advantage of that. We're in the process of getting a Facebook page up and running. We have a committee meeting on this Thursday night. What we're trying to get finished up, get the Facebook page and the website up and running. We want to have a contest, logo contest. The intent is to have an adult and a juvenile contest. The idea being is if we're going to do a kid-friendly event, we'll lean more toward the juveniles designed for the end of the anniversary, and if it's gonna be more of an adult type deal, it'll have the adult thing, and if we can squeeze both of them together, we'll do that too. So that's our first thing up on the agenda, and it's kind of where we're at.
Does that mean you're going to repaint the fire truck?
Probably not repaint the fire truck.
Oh, okay.
But one of the things we're looking at, we do want to work with the state to get permission to have a license plate done up where for a year we'd be able to run them, and we may come back with some type of a decal that embellishes the 300th anniversary, and seek permission from the board as we get a little closer, so maybe the year of the 300th anniversary, we get that seal on maybe all the town vehicles for that 1 year. So where we're at right now.
And
I'm sure you're honing your Twitter skills, right?
I just talked to Peter, and there actually was also a reimbursement from the rec commission, from the rec revolving fund for about $3,000 of materials. So I still got to look at that.
thank you. Peter, you have a comment?
Being who I am and having no class, I was the one that asked John and Connor about having an employee sit in on the committee or the task force for the proposed rewrite of the personnel policy. Everything that there's ever been done in that policy, from whenever to now, every changes that were made, that little thing that was dangling in front of me for the last 40 years has been taken away. We lost earned time, the chance to buy out earned time, how much earned time we can buy out. We lost our sick bank, we lost our longevity checks. I know I sound like a crybaby, but when you read a plan and you get to that point and it's no longer there or it's taken away from you, that has an effect. And I strongly believe in what was voted on tonight by saying that you don't want any employee representative on that board speaks volumes for the value or what you value or how you value your employees.
No, I made a motion to put a second employee on
And it was voted down, right?
We still have the one employee already there.
Peter, we're not reviewing the personnel policy manual.
We're doing the,
This compensation task force is defining how the RFP will go out to look at ranges within the current position descriptions, which will all be updated at the time that the RFP goes out. Has nothing to do with your personnel manual.
I thought that was.
I mean, total rewards can become a component of compensation. The total rewards package, here's what I get for base salary and here's all of the other benefits and they add up to this, and that could be looked at. But you would put a very specific group together to look at the policy manual.
And ain't that what happened at the last meeting? The select board voted to
No.
hire a company to come in and do...
No. This is specific to compensation range structure. So if your position is here, what does that position look like at 5 other municipalities? Do those people with like positions like yours have the same number of direct reports that you do? And what are those 5 people paid? Is Peter Cook's position paid in that same range? It's not looking at the personnel. I mean, I'm not saying maybe it will morph into that, but that's not what was agreed upon.
Well, it will look at benefits as part of the salary compensation, total
I think it will look at
compensation.
total rewards, like what is your, it's usually about 40% of a person's annual salary if their rewards package, as it's termed, for benefits, time off, retirement, all those things. It's usually 40% of what their actual base salary is. So that, I mean, I guess in that sense, it will be considered in are we competitive with total rewards, but nobody's going line item for line item, right now saying what's happening with this, what's happening with this, what's happening with this in that personnel manual. We have actually all done that and made suggestions, but that's not what this is about.
I still stand by what I say. I think the employees ought to be involved in some type of discussion about it. I mean, the problem, other than coming right out and saying it, the problem ain't with the personnel policy. The problem is in the lack of perceived value that employees have working for the people we work for.
In
And
that
that's
you don't
just it.
feel appreciated, is that what you're saying, Peter?
I think you'd be surprised. If you ever sat down and talked to a lot of them, I think you'd be surprised. I mean,
That people don't feel appreciated?
we've had this discussion before. I've asked on a couple of occasions, why can't we sit down and meet with the selectmen as employees? And, I'm told, well, you can do that, but it has to be public. So we did a public one 5 or 6 years ago next door. But I don't know how it works. I don't know what the laws are as far as the selectmen actually being able to sit down and listen to anything that their employees want to discuss, you know what I'm saying? I guess.
I mean, you are required to go through your direct supervisor, which is the town administrator, in order to make a suggestion, or if you have a complaint, unless there's a reason that you would not do that, like the law's been broken in some way. But just like we're not supposed to be directing your work, you are supposed to go directly to the town administrator. And
Well, there's one, you just hit on a topic right there. I mean, I could spend hours on that topic if you want to, but I ain't going to. I mean, there's things, there's, I don't know how to word it. I mean, it's just,
well,
I don't know if you realize how low morale actually is. And it's not just from one department or this department or that department or, I mean, I don't, budget process, I'm told, hey, we're putting in for a full-time foreman. Then, I don't even know why it was done, but a few weeks ago it was taken out of the budget and put in some other line. So does that mean that disappeared? Okay, and then I'm told, I come here and I see, police department, and I'm not trying to pick on them, but I see them doing promotions, or, this promotion, that promotion, this promotion. I'm flat out told, when I was told that we were going to put in a position for a foreman, flat out told, it's nobody from within the department. How does that make you feel? How would that make you feel?
I don't know who told you that, Peter. I mean, when a position opens up within the town of Barrington, every person who is an applicable candidate should be able to apply.
That's not the way it was explained to me.
Okay, well, thank you for sharing that, and certainly thank you for sharing how
You know,
you feel about the
I just-
structure. There are things that can be done, starting with the fact that we're saying, let's look at the compensation structure. Like, I would like you to at least openly hear that means the select board is saying, our employees have a right to be compensated at a market value for the work that they do. And that is something that I think maybe you're misunderstanding, and I want you to absorb the fact that this board said that needs to happen.
And that's probably, maybe I am misunderstanding that. I'm just going by what I hear, and like I said, I could sit down with you people and tell you a lot of things about, Andy brings up HTE and engineers, and Dan brings up engineers, okay? And I stop at job sites and I got engineers looking at me saying, why is this person who is above me leaving angry messages on my machine? And how am I supposed to answer that? I'm the guy that goes out there. I'm the guy that gets this stuff, And I don't know.
I hear you, and I would say when situations like that occur, the answer is always, let me look into that, and I'll get back to you, and then you bring it to your boss,
Tracy,
because that's all you can do.
Peter, we set up a meeting to have with you several months ago, and we were told that the meeting was canceled, and she didn't want to meet with us. And so, I personally, and I'm not speaking for the board, I was disappointed that you didn't take advantage of it, or we couldn't have the opportunity to talk with you. I mean, if you'd like to reschedule that, I'm sure that we...
That was pulled off the table because of time restraints and what we were going through the budget, and I honestly told everybody that was involved, with the time restraints and how long the meetings are going, with budget proposals, you're not gonna want to do it then. You're gonna want to do it after the vote.
Well, I would appreciate then if we sit down and schedule something up again. The vote's coming up here in March. I think that the board's going to elect a new chairperson, and that chairperson will work with John and Connor and set up so that we can have the opportunity to sit down and discuss that with you. I missed not being able to do that. So if you would find time to sit down with Connor and John and get that rescheduled, we'll make sure it fits everybody's schedule, we can do that. I don't want you to feel denied.
I'm not feeling denied. I just think that when we talk about the personnel policy of the plan or whatever, I just think the employees should have some input. Maybe they don't want input, but I'm just thinking that if it's going to affect them or us or me or whatever, I think that maybe there should be some time given so they could say, hey, what's actually going on? What's happening?
The recommendations were made to turn around and update job descriptions, and then a recommendation was made to update the compensation package, because we do know that these things need to be updated and to be looked at. So by going forward, as Select Person Hardikoff explained to you, it's not changing the personnel policy. It's only doing those two items that I just mentioned to you and bring forward, and then a discussion will ensue with the department heads and the employees that go for what the findings are. But there's nothing concrete, there's nothing being done, there's no need to have an individual on what we're doing right now because there isn't any information to do it with. We've also put somebody on the other committee. Lynn is going to represent the employees. I had asked that we put another employee on that particular research committee every other year to change it, and the board said having one employee there was enough, so that's how that is. If it's something there, we can reconsider at the next meeting.
It's going to be a task force that disbands.
The task force is going to disband, so we will still have the opportunity. So everybody can work with Lynn and bring the comments to Lynn once we get started. I want to say I sincerely want you to realize that I do, and so does the board, appreciate your comments in this matter, and we will act on them. You're not doing it for nothing, just coming up here. I appreciate you doing that.
Yep. Thanks for your time.
Peter, thank you very much for your comments. Any other public comment?
You already had your 3 minutes.
You've had 15 minutes.
If I may just piggyback on Peter's concerns.
No. Please go ahead.
I think the history has shown that, in the past, and that's not, it's just, when people start to see that we're going to start looking at compensation package and benefit packages and stuff like that, there's been a number of times over the years where the Board of Selectmen have sent directives that says we're going to increase co-pays on insurance, we're not going to provide as good of insurance, we're going to do this, do that. So I think there's kind of a natural tendency when as department heads, we get an email that basically says the Board of Selectmen have decided to do a compensation study, and they're looking at a few different things. And no disrespect, but it was a pretty vague email. And so to be able to go back out and when you're when you're sitting there as a department head going, okay, what's going on and what does this involve? It's hard for us to go back to our employees and go, yeah, they're looking at this and they want to look at job description, they want to look at this, but because we don't understand exactly what it is that you intend to do, it's hard for us to explain to the employees, and so perhaps a little more information of what the board intends to try to gain by doing this, even if it is to turn around and say, we believe some people are not compensated, you know, that maybe some positions may be undercompensated and some may be right on line and maybe some are overcompensated. Just having some basic information that you can go back to the people and say, you know, here's why we're doing this, is what we expect to get out of it. But I think the feeling is, at least I kind of felt the same way the road agent did when I saw the email from John, that it's like, okay, what's going to happen when the other shoe hits the floor? So I think in fairness to Peter, I think there's a whole bunch of us that are just confused about what's going on, and a little more information about what you folks expected to get out of that compensation survey may have gone a long ways to having people a little bit more comfortable with what you're trying to do, if that makes sense.
Well, first of all, the compensation package, Chief, you can sit down, I can still talk. The compensation package comes out, it's a twofold. We're at the point right now where we're starting to lose some of our employees from the police department have moved to higher paying. We've had people from the fire department leave. We've had other office personnel leave. And so it came to be the point, as Select Person Hanekoff brought up, and we all agree with her, is that we need to know what the future holds, and part of the compensation package is to help us know where we are failing the employees of the town. Part of that is that they leave us to go elsewhere. They come here, they work here for a couple of years, they get everything they need, and boom, they're off and they have a higher raise. And we all know that. And we have no way of knowing just where it's at. We have our department heads. As far as I would say between 10 and 12 years, we're going to probably change 1 or 2 department heads. When we do that, now we have to know that what is being paid out there. What do we have to pay? What do we have to advertise? How do we have to do it for the benefits? And that's part of the compensation package. And that's what that affects. It tells us, are we taking care of our employees or we're not? But we're having a professional do it, and we're not sitting here throwing darts at numbers on a board. We're going to have a professional help us and get that part done. That's what the compensation package is going to do. We're not working on the employee's handbook at all. And I don't think there's anybody on the board that was here when some of those compensations were removed. I'm sure that when I was chair years ago or on the board, we didn't take anything away. We didn't give much, but we didn't take anything away. I'll be first to tell you that. There was a lot of 3-2 votes. And so I hope you get a better understanding. Tracy, do you have any other comments you want to add to this, or anybody else on the board? I mean, we're not here to take things away. We're here to find out where we stand in the state of New Hampshire so we can maintain our employees and not having to keep spending money to retrain them and then have them go off somewhere else for the dollar.
I think Chairperson Bailey's done a good job explaining it. And I think the other thing is that your range structures should be looked at probably every 5 to 8 years. They should be updated. They should be considered for both internal range structure to be sure that your positions measured against your position, measured against your position, measured against the top positions. I think that I'm sorry that it was misunderstood in the memo and that the thought was that we were looking at the personnel handbook. That's not to say that at some point that won't be studied as well, but right now it's getting the ranges in appropriate alignment both internally and to the external market. And that's unfortunate. I'm sorry that the employees in the town read something that that was confusing for them.
Go ahead, chief.
Very good.
I don't want this to drive a wedge between us all working together. That's going to continue as soon as we walk out that door. As a junior employee going on 4 years, I just haven't lived what they have over 30, 40 years. So I haven't lived what they have. So I have a different view. And you guys roped me into this, and I didn't want to be into this. As soon as I heard the word committee going to study compensation, I immediately looked at it as a positive thing. Because I know the officers have already done salary studies at union negotiations. And that's what may differ in between different departments is we have a union. That was formed before I got here under probably previous decisions that may have been made or perceived in the wrong manner. So I looked at it as a positive thing because I know the police officers in Barrington are not compensated where I'd like to see them compensated at. You heard me share 2 or 3 more instances tonight of what actually happens. And I still get it, nothing happens in Barrington. So I take that as a badge of honor, promoting a feeling of safety. But then we do have many, many things that happen in Barrington as we're a 9,000 population. So I think a study is a good thing. I hope it's not a takeaway at the end of the day, which it's clearly been discussed tonight. I see it as a positive thing, and morale at the police department is good. With supervision, it was discussed, police supervision, I've said it, that we haven't in decades added supervision, we just haven't. I'd like to ask for more supervision, but I'm trying to do this in a responsible manner, maybe yearly, every couple of years, and just keep pushing forward, showing the need that we do need supervision on every shift. I don't think we're going to get there anytime soon because that is a cost factor. So I'm trying to do it in a fiscally responsible manner with still providing a level of safety to the community. So again, we walk out of here, we're going to get the job done, all work together. I just share a different view. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Is there any other further comment from the public? Seeing none, I'll close the public comment part and ask that we go into non-public session for personnel, legal, and land.
Reputation.
And, well, you want to do reputation? We'll do reputation. So all 4 of them? So that'll be A, B, C, D, and E.
We want Rick in here for the reputation, so we can do that first.
All right. Do I have a motion, please?
Make a motion to go.
We have a second. A, B, C, D, E, and E, correct. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. And notify the public we will not be coming out except to turn around and make a determination on how or if we're going to seal the minutes. Thank you.